In this world there were strange creatures that brought death and destruction with them. The swordsman raised his scarlet shield, blocking the enemy's furious and powerful blow. People called these ferocious creatures monsters, sowing fear throughout the area. The stricken monster let out a hoarse cry as it encountered the insurmountable defense of the brave warrior. The defender held the shield until his bones crunched, holding back the enemy's crushing onslaught. The archer furiously commanded the squad to attack immediately, pulling the magic bowstring to its limit. With their ferocious nature, these enemies threatened all living things, knowing no mercy. After the command to open fire, a powerful explosion of magical energy instantly engulfed the monster. The paw of the one people called a monster limply touched the bloody dry ground. The archer breathed a sigh of relief, praised everyone, and asked if anyone was injured. The girls confirmed the safety of the forest and were pleased with their new level. The archer thanked Marin for keeping the group calm despite the presence of the vanguard. The blond man anxiously asked his companions to wait, noticing something extremely suspicious. The knight pulled out a knife, causing his comrade to suspect the beginning of another gruesome meal. The cold steel of the blade flashed predatorily, reflecting the determined spirit of an experienced warrior. The swordsman began to carefully shave the stiff bristles from the paw of the defeated monster. The meat was stewed with spices in a cauldron to remove the strong, unpleasant smell. The cook cut the cooked meat into pieces and fried it together with the noodles. The group watched the cooking with disgust, not wanting to get used to the food. The companion defended the chef, reminding him of his efforts and the variety of flavors. The helmeted knight carefully garnished the finished dish with a sprig of fresh herbs. The aromatic pasta with juicy pieces of meat beckoned with its bright appearance. The companion looked at the masterpiece with obvious disgust, not wanting to try the monster meat. Marin opened his mouth wide and swallowed the noodles with relish. The girl asked doubtfully if the food was really that tasty. The swordsman offered his companion a try, but she flatly refused in horror. The knight noted with pleasure that the locals simply had no understanding of taste. The tender texture of the meat melted in the mouth, creating a true harmony of fats. The group watched in amazement as their friend's blissful face devoured the dangerous prey. The archer suddenly changed the subject, remembering the news about the recently missing hero. Marin suddenly froze upon hearing the grim news of the discovery of the dead hero's body. The companion, in shock, shouted out a demand to clarify the location of this terrible southern tragedy. The sorceress sadly reflected on the fate of the strong warrior who had once shown great promise. The knight stood silently with his food, intensely pondering the alarming news he had heard. The squad sat sullenly in the cave, wondering about the strength of the terrible monster living nearby. The girl noted with displeasure that Marin probably only thought about eating this monster. The red-haired warrior asked him point-blank why he started eating monsters in the first place. The mysterious chef withdrew into himself, maintaining a frighteningly heavy and long silence. The town's anxious residents suddenly learned that all regular flights had been completely cancelled. In the square, a merchant furiously announced to the people the appearance of a ferocious and dangerous red boar. A huge red boar blocked the road, completely blocking the movement of all caravans. The merchant looked warily at the cart that had returned to the city yesterday. The exhausted driver could barely stay in the saddle after his encounter with the forest monster. The townspeople, in a panic, refused to leave the walls, fearing a sudden attack by the beast. The woman bitterly mourned the missed meeting with her son due to the flight cancellation. The carriers nervously discussed the tight deadlines for delivering an important order to a noble gentleman. The man clutched his head in despair, fearing the wrath of his influential client. The head cab driver firmly announced that no one would risk their lives today. The enraged driver ordered them to look for another cart, regardless of the circumstances. The lonely carriage slowly set off under the watchful gaze of passers-by. The traders noted the worn but rather sturdy appearance of the knight in the helmet. The men doubted their ability to choose their own security due to a lack of funds. The merchant called out loudly to the warrior, demanding that he stop immediately. The knight froze and turned around, attracted by the sharp cry of strangers on the street. The merchant inquired about the swordsman's destination, mentioning the eastern direction to a drama. The warrior was offered to accompany the caravan in exchange for high-quality free food. Residents briefly described the dangerous situation on the roads and the extreme rush. The swordsman decided that mutual assistance seemed logical in the given circumstances. The delighted merchant enthusiastically praised the knight for his wise and timely decision. The guide asked the warrior to wait in the cart until the gathering of fellow travelers was completed. The merchant Maham offered to introduce himself while the knight was settling into the carriage. The warrior introduced himself as Marin Glass, lounging lazily on the wooden planks. The merchants quietly discussed the strange mercenary, wondering if he was a deserter. Marin advised hiring more people if they were so worried. The knight closed his eyes in his helmet, plunging into heavy and gloomy thoughts. The sudden flash of crazy eyes was accompanied by a quiet and eerie laughter. The bloody hand froze limply in the mud, unable to wait for help in the forest. The body of the great hero lay under a tree, having met its absurd end. The mysterious pursuer turned around with an evil grin, hiding his true intentions. The assassin looked coldly at the fallen knight in the middle of the dark and night thicket. The masked hunter turned around in horror, noticing the giant beetle monster behind him. The fugitive desperately clung to life, promising himself to definitely return home alive. His wounded arm bled profusely, leaving scarlet stains on the dark ground. Through the darkness of the night, the warrior furiously strove to quickly reach the treasured Adorama. The sleeping Marin was gently awakened, with apologies for accidentally touching his helmet. The knight inquired about the situation, while his companions animatedly discussed the purposes of their trips. The group in the cramped carriage confirmed that their common path lay to Adorama. The traveler spoke of his intention to visit his family at the shelter of St. Rias. The formidable partner assessed Marin's equipment, and suddenly became curious about his level. The man explained that the level clearly demonstrates the warrior's strength through the window of the mind. The companion boasted about his level, urging Marin to strive to achieve strength. The swordsman calmly checked his status, which was hidden at a sky-high level 95. A sharp blow shook the cart, throwing the heroes off balance with its unexpected force. The frightened cab driver screamed in horror, noticing the approach of the monster from the forest thicket. The huge red boar rushed towards the caravan at full speed, raising dust. The enraged monster rushed towards the people, driven by a thirst for blood and primal rage. The monster bared its sharp fangs, letting out a terrifying roar in the faces of the frightened travelers. The mercenary ordered everyone to take positions and immediately protect the cargo from the beast. Marin jumped down onto the road, instantly recognizing the attacker as the legendary Red Boar. The knight silently studied the enemy, confirming that his appearance matched his eerie forest nickname. Marin noted that the level 62 boar was perfect for testing strength. The knight resolutely drew his sword, preparing to clash with the enraged forest beast. The frightened cab driver recoiled in panic, watching his partner's sudden attack. The mercenary shouted furiously at Marin, accusing him of suicidal road recklessness. The giant red boar rushed at full speed straight towards the motionless warrior. The gazes of the predator and the man met a moment before the fatal and inevitable collision. With one lightning-fast stroke of his blade, the swordsman cut through the monster's flesh, staining the ground with blood. The beast's enormous carcass split in two, splattering the road with blood as the travelers watched. The winner stood calmly over the remains of his enemy, ending the battle with just one precise blow. The blood-spattered knight turned around in bewilderment, hearing a stunned cry behind him. The enormous red boar split in two with a deafening and triumphant cry. The monster's carcass finally split apart, causing unprecedented delight among the frightened travelers. The bloodied Marin stood frozen in bewilderment, sincerely doubting the reality of his crushing blow. The knight judged that even with the difference in levels, one swing was not enough. The companion enthusiastically patted the guy on the shoulder, calling this crazy maneuver incredible. The merchant asked if the young swordsman was an elite knight from the capital. The entire caravan stared at the hero in amazement, unable to comprehend what they saw. The man laughed loudly and reminded him of his hunger after such a fierce fight. The blood-spattered warrior calmly suggested to his comrades that they finally take a break and have a bite to eat. The travelers began to prepare dinner, still in shock from what they had seen. The companions whispered about the strange knight, whose face was hidden under a helmet of very cheap armor. The girl and the man wondered if the warrior's jagged sword was a legendary artifact. The red-haired heroine called out to Marin, but found only an empty space and a dying wind. The archer and his companion realized with confusion that the mysterious ally had just disappeared. The sudden sight made the young mercenaries scream loudly in indescribable horror and shock. The voice returned silently to the camp, dragging behind him the huge carcass of the slain boar. The girl, in a rage, demanded to know why he had dragged the dead monster right to the table. The angry companion loudly ordered the knight to immediately carry the stinking loot away from the fire. The travelers' bowls were steaming with a thick stew made from the fresh meat of the defeated monster. Maham grumbled with displeasure that the sight of the butchered carcass had completely deprived him of all appetite. The knight silently adjusted his old helmet, deep in thought about the campaign. Marin carefully tasted the tasteless brew, trying to satisfy his intense hunger after the hard battle. The disgusting taste of the stew made the warrior almost spit out the entire contents of the bowl. The companion devoured the hot soup with satisfaction, surprised by the strange and sharp reaction of her protector. The girl mockingly remarked that such a simple meal was considered almost a royal dinner here. The red-haired companion was genuinely horrified by Marin's desire to taste the tough meat of the defeated forest monster. The heroine reasonably feared that the flesh of the slain boar might turn out to be extremely bitter or poisonous. People hastily butchered the carcass, planning to take the valuable parts and quickly burn the rest. The girl convinced the knight to eat to conserve his strength on the long and dangerous journey. The exhausted travelers tried unsuccessfully to light a fire to destroy the remains of the huge, ferocious beast. The men tried in vain to light a fire under the huge carcass of the ferocious forest monster. The companion resolutely approached the workers and offered to quickly solve the problem that had arisen. Night Voice was puzzled why they were asking a simple young archer to light the fire. The girl extended her palm forward, instantly creating a clot of bright and pure flame. A powerful flash of magic lit up the forest, quickly engulfing the remains of the fallen red boar. Marin watched the dazzling spectacle in silence, hiding his slight astonishment under his helmet. Men praised the convenience of magic and jokingly dreamed of learning sorcery, too. The companion paused thoughtfully for a moment, looking at her palms after the powerful spell. The knight asked the girl directly if she had previously studied at the legendary Tower of Mages. The heroine quickly objected, claiming that she was an archer and not associated with the mages. The companion explained that simple magic is available to many, but requires 3 years of training. The girl mockingly called the knight a backward old man who had crawled out of a distant, forgotten era. The archer suddenly pointed her hand forward, calling on her companion to look carefully in that direction. Before the hero's eyes, the lights of a large, distant city shone brightly in the darkness of the night. Marin shuddered in surprise, looking in fascination at the sea of light spread out below. The companion showed me magical lanterns, which were still a great rarity in the villages. The voice sadly recalled the times when magical toys did not yet exist. The mighty knight stood alone on the hill, silently contemplating the lights of a drama spread out below. The cold gleam of distant stars and city lights was reflected in the slits of the old helmet. The mercenaries by the fire greedily inhaled the aroma of meat, dreaming of the taste of ordinary pork. The mercenaries were noisily dreaming about ice-cold beer and juicy meat around the fire. The voice stood silently by the flame, ignoring the tempting smell of cooking food. Thanks to the night, the caravan arrived in the city of Adrama much earlier than expected. Maham shook Marin's hand firmly, sincerely thanking him for saving him. The voice bowed politely, while his empty stomach made a hungry irk. The merchants discussed with surprise the knight who drank water the entire journey. Left alone, the exhausted warrior leaned heavily against a tree from weakness. The companions wondered if their mysterious protector was suffering from some kind of illness. The voice hid under the helmet the pallor caused by long and painful starvation. The knight refused the extra payment, strictly following their original agreement. Maham warmly thanked Marin for his help and sincerely wished them a quick meeting. In a small bag, the stern knight found several tubers of the most ordinary fresh potatoes. The voice looked long and thoughtfully at the modest payment given by the kind merchant for his rescue. The warrior walked confidently along the pavement, accompanied by the strange gaze of a lonely beggar at the wall. Marin Glass admitted with relief that he had finally returned to his native Adrama. The city streets seemed completely alien to the knight after many years of his dangerous wanderings. The voice immediately recognized the old bakery, around which the townspeople were still crowded. The knight noticeably quickened his pace, knowing that his goal awaited him around the next turn. Thoughts of his beloved home made the stern warrior freeze for a moment with excitement. Before him appeared an old orphanage where a kind nun walked with little orphans. Marin froze in front of the bright sign of the toy store, not believing his eyes. The knight stared at the reflection, wondering how the shelter had turned into this store. The man who came out of the shop politely asked what exactly the strange warrior was looking for. The voice desperately asked the stranger about the shelter, which was definitely located in this place. The merchant admitted, confused, that he had not heard anything in the years he had owned the shop. The interlocutor repeated that he did not know the fate of the building that stood here before. The old man sitting next to him suddenly called out to the knight, recognizing the name of the old holy shelter. The grandfather told the warrior a legend about a place that existed in this city a long time ago. The old man whispered hoarsely that he remembered old rumors about the tragic fate of the building. Marin shuddered when he heard the terrible news that the shelter had burned to the ground. A terrible vision of a furious dragon attacking people surfaced in the warrior's memory. The huge beast breathed fire, mercilessly destroying all living things in its path. The hero remembered his previous life, which was slowly and hopelessly sinking into emptiness. Dull memories of gray everyday life without a true dream flashed before my eyes. The only bright moment was the warmth of a family dinner in the company of loved ones. The first life ended suddenly, leaving behind only cold and oblivion. The knight woke up from a bright light, seeing a strange wooden toy above his head. 2 curious children looked into the baby's cradle with genuine delight. The boy joyfully shouted to his sister, informing everyone in the house about his little brother's awakening. The reborn warrior looked at his tiny hands in confusion, not understanding the nature of the changes. The man quietly asked not to shout, so as not to frighten the baby who had just woken up. Strong arms gently picked up the child, joyfully inviting him to come closer to the light. A smiling nun warmly welcomed the new charge into the cozy walls of the St. Rias orphanage. The woman solemnly announced to the tiny creature that he had now become a full-fledged member of the family. Marin forever remembered this first bright memory of the warmth of his new home. The heavy bag of coins clanged dully, becoming a generous donation for the needs of the orphans. The young warrior sincerely wished that the children would finally be able to taste something truly delicious. The worried nun lamented that her faithful protector was leaving again on a dangerous mission. The knight confidently declared that clearing out the goblins in the south would be just a trifling job. The old woman sadly resigned herself to the warrior's decision. sighing heavily at the inevitable separation. The elderly nun insistently asked the knight to make one important promise before his departure. The woman promised to bake her favorite berry pie by the time of the stern warrior's long-awaited return. Marin Glass smiled warmly under his helmet and solemnly vowed to return home. The action moved to an old, crooked tree standing in the middle of a quiet city cemetery. A new acquaintance sadly confirmed that no one survived that terrible fire at the shelter. The girl curiously asked who exactly this long burnt-out shelter belonged to the knight. Marin knelt silently before the modest memorial plaque on the tree trunk. The knight politely apologized for the disturbance and slowly headed towards the exit of the temple grounds. His hand trembled with the realization that the promise he had once made remained forever unfulfilled. The warrior touched the stone, bitterly recalling the old words about a quick and joyful return. Drops of cold rain slowly trickled down the steel helmet of the grieving knight. Marin remembered the nun's words that he had absolutely nothing to worry about. The warrior imagined the battle with the dragon, reproaching himself for his absence at the fateful moment. In the pouring rain, the knight desperately pressed himself against the memorial plaque on the old tree. The voice realized that he would never know if their fate would have turned out differently. The wet slab preserved the memory of those who remained forever in the burnt-out shelter. The nuns were whispering about the strange warrior who had been sitting by the tree for several days. The women were seriously afraid that the stranger might become very ill from grief and cold. Marin stood motionless on his knees, completely immersed in his unbearable mental pain. The abandoned bread lay in the grass, a reminder of the warrior's complete indifference to life. The devastated knight sat dejectedly under a tree while the nun walked past him indifferently. The warrior lifted the stale bread from the ground with difficulty, hoping to at least slightly satisfy his hunger. Marin Glass brought the meager food to his helmet, not feeling at all appetizing. The hero chewed the tasteless piece with difficulty, feeling a strange bitterness growing inside him. The bread thrown on the grass seemed to the knight to be an absolutely disgusting and unbearable abomination. Even the hot soup made Marin feel nauseous and had a strong desire to spit it out immediately. The caravan's companions ate with gusto, causing the warrior to doubt his sanity. The grief-stricken knight curled up into a ball, unable to overcome the gnawing emptiness. All alone, Marin mourned the loss of his family, cursing his miserable, meaningless existence. A sudden, alluring aroma made the exhausted hero wake up and distract himself from his gloomy thoughts. Marin wondered whether it was meat or fish, because the smell attracted him with its novelty. The involuntary salivation under his helmet revealed the true, almost forgotten hunger of this exhausted warrior. Forgetting his fatigue, the knight resolutely headed towards the source of the enticing, very thick smoke. The air filled with the aroma of fried food, causing Marin to quickly quicken his pace through the quiet streets. The traveler slowly turned the corner, carefully examining the dark shadows of this old alley. Marin hid carefully behind the wall, eavesdropping on the nervous conversation between two completely frightened workers. The men argued about the strange meat, which looked suspiciously tasty in the bright flames. The fire furiously devoured the carcasses of the monsters, while the workers feared accidental poisoning from the toxic food. The knight's eyes flashed from under his visor as he realized the true source of the scent. The workers hastily dumped the remains of the creatures into the pit, fearing the possible wrath of the strict guards. The hungry night voice studied the meat in fascination, finding it to be incredibly appetizing. Marin ran away quickly, while the surprised workers slowly realized the scale of the burned supplies. Taking cover under an old tree, the warrior intently examined his prey, anticipating his long-awaited feast. The knight confidently drew his sharp knife, preparing to immediately cut up the juicy piece of flesh he had found. The appetizing piece of meat glistened with fat, exuding the aroma of well-roasted wild game. Marin bit into the flesh with furious teeth, completely forgetting all rules of decency. The hero devoured the monster with frantic greed, feeling an unexpected return of his former joy in life. The delighted Marin sincerely admired the deliciousness, finally feeling truly full and satisfied. The knight continued to greedily cut into the meat, enjoying every moment of this extremely strange meal. The incomparable taste of smoked game made the warrior completely forget about his suffering. The juicy meat juice splashed onto his tongue, awakening the knight's wild instincts. This food was much better than the junk the warrior had previously been unable to swallow. Marin greedily swallowed the pieces, feeling how the thirst for life was finally awakening inside him. The knight looked at his palm, stained with the blood and fat of the slain monster. The voice breathed heavily, realizing the monstrous truth about its sudden and wild appetite. The exhausted hero fell to his knees, no longer able to contain the overwhelming emotions. Bitter tears of remorse and burning pain flowed beneath the warrior's cold steel helmet. Before my eyes appeared the ghosts of deceased loved ones, passing into the blinding light of eternal peace. Marin Glass begged for forgiveness, desperately confessing his passionate desire to live. Clenching his fist, the knight vowed to become human again and enjoy the taste of real food. The exhausted night voice sincerely wished to find long-awaited happiness in this cruel world. Marin crawled helplessly along the stone slabs, dropping his trusty shield onto the grass. A green leaf landed softly on the steel helmet, becoming a symbol of hope for the warrior. A ghostly, glowing hand gently touched Marin's bloody palm at that mournful moment. The knight froze in sudden amazement, feeling an extraordinary warmth in his tormented soul. A small leaf covered the wound on his hand, as if trying to heal the pain of the fallen hero. The voice sat motionless in front of the tree, pondering the mysterious sign from above in silence. The warrior resolutely swallowed the tiny particle, trusting his intuition and the strange call of his heart. Marin Glass felt an incredible surge of strength as the mysterious gift began to act instantly. A pure drop of dew on a leaf sparkled, marking the beginning of a new path for the knight. The knight resolutely threw his bag over his shoulder, preparing for a new, very dangerous journey. Marin took one last look at the memorial tree and announced his departure. The warrior silently promised to return on time, leaving the old elm in complete silence. The knight's heavy boot confidently stepped onto the pavement, opening a completely new chapter in life. The majestic guild tower loomed ahead, becoming a symbol of his secret life as a gourmet. Marin Glass approached the Hexalim Guild, located in the very center of the wealthy city. Inside the hall, adventurers were noisily discussing tasks, preparing for their future great exploits. The notice board was full of orders for monsters, attracting the attention of experienced and brave warriors. The cat clerk received the reports, keeping a strict record of all the strong fighters registered on the list. The mechanism recorded a powerful blow, confirming high status and the right to enter the building. The unknown warrior dealt a crushing blow to the mechanical target, hoping to successfully pass the test. The fair-haired elf archer stood confidently before the crowd, waiting his turn for a test of strength. The powerful pulse left a bright dent on the robot's body, recording its enormous force. The elf rushed forward, becoming a blurry green shadow for all spectators. A strong gust of wind blew the hood off, revealing the calm and focused face of the young master. The robot's mechanical eye suddenly lit up, displaying a new record of 5,000 points. The archer clenched his fist in victory, enjoying his triumph amid the enthusiastic cries of the entire surprised crowd. The hero silently headed for the exit, while the astonished adventurers heatedly discussed his result. The elf cast a fleeting glance back, not at all doubting his complete superiority. The annoying stranger offered to join forces with the archer, reminding him of his former glory as a famous warrior. The proud elf archer looked with undisguised contempt at the noisy adventurers crowding around him. The fair-haired master sharply pushed the impudent man's hand away, ordering him not to let go of his hands again. The secretive night voice scratched his helmet awkwardly, silently apologizing for his accidental delay. The tiny mouse clerk screamed furiously at Marin, demanding that he immediately undergo an important test of strength. The elf watched the dejected gait of this strange and slow knight with undisguised disappointment. The arrogant archer suddenly softened and smiled encouragingly at his new, extremely mysterious acquaintance. The archer placed a friendly hand on the warrior's shoulder, urging him to finally relax completely. The fair-haired hero assured the knight that unnecessary stress would only hinder him from successfully passing the test. The elf cheerfully showed the victory sign, reminding his relatives of the need to always sincerely help each other. Marin Glass froze in complete bewilderment, completely unable to understand the meaning of the words spoken about kinship. Administrator Daisy happily welcomed the new heroine into the hall. A confident Dahlia walked up to the counter, proud of her triumph on the test. The elf brushed off Daisy's praise, considering the record a trifle. The girl presented Dahlia with a certificate officially confirming her status as an adventurer. Seeing her low rank, Dahlia became enraged by the injustice. Daisy explained that new guild members always start at the lowest rank. The indignant elf demanded that the most difficult task be given immediately. Dahlia chose 2 dangerous orders, hoping to increase her status quickly. The administrator warned that quests are only available to close-knit groups, and she was frightened. Dahlia is shocked by the rules that hinder her big and bold plans. The gloomy gargoyle estate was teeming with monsters, frightening the local residents for a long time. Due to the threat of a breakout, the guild has banned newcomers from entering alone. Arrogant Dahlia was angry, not wanting to look for partners for the order. Mustachioed Maham laughed loudly, not noticing the tension in the guild. The confused guy scratched his cheek in bewilderment, watching the heroes. Dahlia glanced around the room with irritation, wondering anxiously about her future partners. A sudden explosion behind them made everyone shudder in horror. Dahlia turned around in panic, the mechanical fist breaking through the wall. The debris flew in all directions, filling the room with thick smoke. Through the smoke, people's cries about the condition of the surviving soldiers could be heard. Daisy ran over in a panic, checking the surviving adventurers for safety. The fallen golem lay in ruins, a clear demonstration of the knight's strength. Dahlia stared at Marin in shock, realizing the newcomer's power. Marin Glass stood motionless in the middle of the smoke, not understanding what had happened. The warrior clenched his fist in confusion, horrified by the ability to sow chaos. The knight bowed in apology, feeling ashamed for the broken wall. The registrar reassured the hero, praising him for honestly and successfully passing the test. Daisy noted the exceptional nature of the moment. Such destruction had never happened before. The girl presented the bill, offering to immediately pay for the damage to the guild without any disturbance. Marin Glass fell into despair as he contemplated the huge list of payments. Smiling, Daisy presented the bill, 3 gold, 50 silver coins. Shaking his empty wallet, Knight Marin realized the complete financial catastrophe. The registrar allowed the debt to be paid later, calming the shocked warrior politely. The girl threatened to sue if Marin delayed returning the funds. Daisy advised to fulfill orders diligently to pay off accumulated debts. The elf Dahlia offered the knight to join forces to complete a difficult task. The comrade winked coquettishly, reminding him of the mutual assistance between relatives. Marin recognized the stranger. The elf had approached him instantly earlier. Dahlia pointed to the contracts, confidently counting on quick earnings. The administrator praised the choice of heroes, joyfully noting the ideal combination of classes. The registrar called the warrior and archer the ideal combination for the tasks. The knight became nervous about the alliance. They did not introduce themselves formally. Archer Dahlia smiled and invited his partner to introduce himself first. The secretive warrior looked at the palm with doubt and without much enthusiasm. The tense hero frantically tried to figure out how to resolve the awkward, drawn-out acquaintance. Marin Glass returned the handshake, asking that he be addressed by his first name calmly. Dahlia encouraged his partner to put in maximum effort for the first order. The knight suppressed his reluctance to work, considering his ally a quite capable fighter. The registrar declared the procedure complete, and the partners sealed their union with a firm handshake. The decisive gesture confirmed the creation of a detachment ready to face difficult challenges. The partner inquired about the strange behavior of the warrior, who suddenly froze in surprise. Dahlia grimaced, realizing that his companion belonged to humanity. The knight studied the crumpled map against the backdrop of dense forest thickets. A sign appeared in front of the heroes, marking the entrance to the gargoyle's lair. The archer demanded that the passage be cleared. Marin stood hesitantly in front of the cave. The arrogant partner grumbled. Working with a human is a real punishment. Marin Glass sighed, remembering the difficult nature of the elves with difficulty. The knight reflected on the beauty of the elves, whose ego was a hindrance to humans. The registrar smiled cheerfully at the heroes, strikingly different from her arrogant relatives. A mysterious purple glow enveloped the warrior, and his heart began to beat much faster. A mansion rose before the heroes, the windows glowing with an ominous blood-red light. Marin Glass was amazed by the decor, which resembled a completely different alien world. The knight activated the assessment skill, studying the territory of the future enemy carefully. Swarms of small gremlins filled the space with their eerie low-level screams. The arrogant elf told the man to stay away and not interfere. Dahlia froze in shock. Her partner silently turned around and walked away. The archer furiously demanded not to ignore him, having heard his agreement to leave immediately. The elf reproached the warrior for his lack of manners, blaming his short-lived race. Marin Glass quietly asked them to simply do the job as promised. The warrior moved forward, ignoring the fearful warnings about the multitude of enemies. The knight noted that low-level monsters did not pose a threat to them. Dahlia became nervous, wondering if her partner had seen her status and strength. The elf's eyes widened in shock, and she ordered her companion to stop wide. The angry girl accused Marin of shamelessly peeping at her characteristics. A grinning gremlin flew out of the darkness, attracted by the screams of his companion. The archer screamed furiously about the poor upbringing of the warrior in space. Dahlia lost her temper and loudly called the knight a shameless man. The bloodthirsty creature jumped on the girl, preparing to bite her in the back of the head. Marin Glass stopped the monster with a blade and asked for silence with lightning speed. The severed gremlin fell. The warrior reminded the elf of the rules of etiquette. The irritated elf disgustedly wiped the green slime from the monster's face. Marin Glass admitted that he checked his status during guild registration. Dahlia was furiously indignant, and the knight silently placed his palm on the hilt. The warrior suggested finishing the task and going their separate ways for good. The proud elf warned her partner, forbidding him to hold back in the heat of battle. The companions argued heatedly about the division of roles in this upcoming battle. Dahlia decided to attack the gargoyles, sending the knight to catch the small gremlins. Marin Glass wordlessly grabbed the writhing creatures with his hands. The knight casually threw the captured creatures into a pile on the floor. The warrior dusted off his gloves, announcing the capture of 50 small monsters. Marin Glass looked around at his opponents, assessing the scale of the dangerous work ahead. The knight noticed a broken stone, indicating the beginning of a fierce battle. Gargoyles appeared before the travelers, significantly superior in strength to the gremlins. An exhausted Dahlia breathed heavily, holding back the onslaught of numerous stone enemies. A huge monster attacked the elf, causing her to scream loudly in horror. A thick cloud hid the battle. The warrior watched silently from the side. Marin Glass decided to find a place to do his usual cooking. The warrior raised his blade over the monster, planning to prepare an unusual dinner. The hunter butchered his prey, comparing the gremlin's meat to that of a wood frog. The knight laid the meat on the board, noting the small amount of the catch. The knight threaded pieces of fresh meat onto a thin steel spoke. The warrior hoped that roasting the hearts would help to kill the unpleasant, strange smell. The monster kebabs slowly browned over the bright flames of the fire. The finished dish looked tempting in the hands of this experienced hunter. Glass was pleased with his first attempt at cooking unusual forest game. The hero brought the treat to the helmet, wanting to appreciate its taste. The warrior greedily bit into the meat, ignoring the danger and the darkness. The knight admitted that the defeated monsters were indeed tasty and filling. Marin compared the taste to duck, noting the saltiness and aroma. The stealthy warrior dreamed of adding sauce to make the camp dinner perfect. The stealthy warrior felt a sharp, tingling sensation and dropped the hot camp shashlik. Marin Glass collapsed on the rocks after the poison was discovered. The knight was horrified to realize that his limbs were paralyzed by the poison. The hero convulsively admitted his fatal mistake in tasting the gremlin. The voice frantically searched for an antidote, rapidly losing the rest of its vital energy. The poisoned warrior desperately cried out for immediate healing through his consciousness. Marin remembered the law about the toxin-neutralizing organs of poisonous creatures. The hunter grabbed the monster's raw liver, hoping for his salvation. The voice greedily swallowed the bitter organ, considering it its last chance. The knight breathed a sigh of relief on the ground, amazed at the sudden, incredible healing. The knight breathed a sigh of relief. The mortal danger had finally completely passed. Marin wondered about the reasons why people avoid eating monsters. Dahlia screamed furiously at her partner when she saw the consequences of the crazy experiment. The elf demanded an explanation, struck by the strange, frightening behavior of the secretive warrior. The archer looked at the remains of the monsters and her dejected partner with disgust. The girl covered her face with her hand, convinced of the barbarity of all humanity. Dahlia loudly protested the madness of the knight, who called her to calm down. The voice answered firmly, "The vegetarianism of elves does not give the right to insult." The companion grabbed her head in horror, dreaming of returning home. The enraged elf rudely asked why the warrior was delaying the task. The warrior reminded them of the paired task, emphasizing their shared responsibility to the guild. The smiling elf happily showed a scroll with a long list of new assignments. The archer in the orange bandage cried out. Difficulties were his problem. Marin Glass offered to help with the gargoyles, wanting to complete the quest. The knight asked his partner to wait, promising to deal with the enemies quickly. The astonished shooter froze in bewilderment, not realizing the strange plan. Marin Glass picked up the sword and frying pan, remembering an important detail. The hero loudly struck the dishes with his sword, activating the monster's taunt. A flock of winged creatures swooped down, attracted by a sharp, ringing noise. A huge gargoyle with flaming eyes prepared to tear apart the disturber of the peace. The knight slammed his sword against the dishes, attracting the attention of the surrounding monsters. The archer looked up in horror, realizing the scale of the mortal threat. The flashing red symbol signaled the activation of a well-known skill of experienced shield users. The mighty silhouette of a warrior with a shield personified the ancient technique of mockery. A huge flock of creatures attacked the knight, and his partner ran away in panic. Marin Glass stood amidst the chaos, considering provocation the best bait. Bloodthirsty monsters with glowing eyes approached, demonstrating frightening power. The abandoned frying pan fell silent. The hero indifferently brushed aside the difficulties that had arisen. The knight used masterful fencing, significantly increasing the power of his crushing blows. The magical buff increased the warrior's agility, preparing him for combat against monsters. The archer decided to cover the rear, cursing the knight for the chaos he had caused. The elf froze in shock when she saw the incredible power of her strange partner. Marin Glass killed an entire flock of monsters with one swing of his sword. The shocked shooter couldn't believe his eyes as he watched the enemies easily deal with him. The girl remembered her torment, realizing the simply colossal difference in strength. The archer wondered about the true identity of this mysterious, strong warrior. After the battle, the partners walked in silence, the elf persistently trying to speak. The companion hesitantly asked the warrior about the reasons for his risky behavior in the forest. Marin Glass answered dryly, wanting to finish the boring task as quickly as possible. The elf called the knight trash, hiding her admiration for his great skill. The elf's sensitive ear suddenly caught the barely audible sounds of the forest. The archer stopped the knight abruptly, calling him to listen to the voices coming from him. Marin Glass was amazed by his partner's unique ability to pick up noises from afar. The shooter's face distorted with alarm as he realized the nature of the screams he had heard. The elf quickly rushed into the thicket, wanting to get to the sound. From the cliff, the heroes noticed a stuck cart and suspicious people. The enraged men argued over the wheel, fearing they would be late for the market. The cruel overseer hit the prisoner with all his might, calling him a slave offspring. The archer's gaze filled with cold fury at the sight of the elf's bullying. The beaten youth, in heavy chains, begged his tormentors to stop the blows. Through clenched teeth, the elf expressed contempt for the cruelty of the human race. She fiercely denounced the hypocrisy of the traders who covered up the sale of creatures with speeches. Climbing onto the ledge, the archer demanded a weapon, meeting with cold incomprehension. The elf's gaze filled with shock. She realized her partner's indifference to horror. Marin Glass coolly pointed at the prisoner, questioning the illegality. The heroine insisted on intervention. The knight suggested entrusting the matter to the guards. The girl admitted with bitterness that Marin Glass was callous, like the others. She drew the bowstring tightly, preparing to punish the criminals without support. Marin Glass blocked the way, causing his hot-tempered companion to freeze for a moment. At the van, the slave trader had absolute control over the elf's fate, without suspecting it. The elf mother in the cage hugged her crying child, trying to calm him down. Marin Glass maintained a sullen silence, hiding his intentions behind his visor. The archer realized with bitterness that she would have to fight injustice alone. The girl resolutely closed her eyes, remembering the years of training for this moment. The elf drew her bowstring furiously, vowing to put an end to the vile slave traders. The deadly arrow whistled through the air, bringing its well-deserved punishment. The sudden roar made the archer flinch and lose her concentration instantly. A powerful explosion scattered the van's guards, and the slave traders covered their faces in horror. The stunned bandits fell to the ground, coughing from the dust in confusion. The magic sword struck the wheel with a clang, blocking the path. The archer looked in amazement at Marin, who suddenly decided to help the battle. The image of a nun hugging a small child came to the girl's mind. The knight said in cold blood, "Protecting an innocent child, ignoring the fate of adults." Marin Glass challenged the slavers, the leader staring at his sword. The heroes stood shoulder to shoulder, ready to punish the captive traders. The powerful blow made the enemies flinch, and the leader shouted a question in fear. The bandit leader furiously demanded an explanation, while his partners confidently closed the distance. The elf angrily accused the people of arrogance, trying to save their relatives. The criminals hid behind the name of the Marquis of Bechtal, claiming that the trade was legal. Hearing the aristocrat's name, the elf became nervous, realizing the scale of the impending threat. The slave trader pointed boldly at the coat of arms, demanding an apology from the Marquis. One of the bandits spoke contemptuously about the stupidity of the elves, provoking the girl. The insulted archer gnashed her teeth in rage, barely containing her anger. Marin examined the flag and coldly noted the discrepancy with the Bechtal coat of arms. The elf turned to the knight in amazement, struck by his unexpected powers of observation. The gang leader aggressively insisted on the authenticity of the patron's wolf symbol. The homemade banner depicts a wolf's head with 2 eyes. An ancient legend said that the one-eyed ancestor was depicted on the true coat of arms. The knight exposed the deceivers by pointing out the wolf's extra eye. The criminals exchanged worried glances, realizing that the lie had been instantly exposed. The knight reminded the criminals that forgery of coats of arms carries the death penalty. The leader, in a rage, ordered the heroes to be killed, relying on superiority. The huge mercenary swung his sword, complaining that his colleagues had avoided fights before. Marin Glass cut him off coldly. The old rules had long since become history. With one blow, the knight pierced the giant's armor, instantly crushing his defense. The robber choked on blood. The crushing force of the blow knocked the life out of him. The mercenary's body flew backwards, sweeping away everything in its path. A thunderous explosion of dust marked the fall of the squad's strongest fighter. The heavily armored enemy froze on the ground, unable to groan. The bandit leader screamed in horror, not believing his bodyguard's defeat. The defeated enemy, choking with rage, spat out the last insult. The elven archer drew her bowstring, coldly asking if the enemy wished to continue. The windows of the mysterious spire glowed brightly against the night sky. The rescued peasant thanked Marin profusely, promising to find a way to repay him. The high elf answered humbly. He simply could not abandon his kin. The fair-haired warrior apologized for the delay and asked if things had been sorted out. The elf reported that the slave traders had been handed over to the city guards who had arrived in time. The hero predicted severe punishment for the criminals for pretending to be noblemen. Marin Glass felt embarrassed when hopeful glances were directed at him. The little elf timidly asked the knight if he really saved them. The little elf smiled sincerely and thanked her savior for his bravery. The rescued family humbly bowed to the heroes before leaving for good. The armored knight remained silent, hiding his thoughts behind his helmet. The fair-haired elf scratched the back of his head in confusion, acknowledging his silent partner's contribution. The proud ally reluctantly thanked Marin for saving his fellow slaves. The knight suddenly interrupted the elf with a dry demand for immediate payment of the reward. Marin insisted on payment, preferring a hard coin of gratitude. The shocked elf angrily asked whether the knight had helped for profit. The ally trembled with indignation, bitterly regretting his recent gratitude. The angry elf threw the heavy purse at the knight, ordering him to get away. The angry elf swore furiously never to trust selfish people. The next day, the partners arrived at the majestic guild hall. The receptionist confirmed that the number of trophies exactly matched the order request. A smiling employee praised the soldiers for their excellent performance on their first assignment. Marin Glass politely thanked the administrator for his high praise for his work. The knight extended his hand and received the long-awaited, suspiciously easy reward. The warrior looked at the coins in confusion, amazed at the insignificance of the sum he had received. The girl explained that the guild automatically deducted funds to pay off the debt. Marin was determined to pay off all financial obligations on time. The tired knight immediately took on a new quest and set out on his journey. The knight studied the notice board, choosing a new task that suited his rank. Marin wanted to try an unusual dish on his new trip. After examining the contract for stone monsters, the knight decided to refuse the order. The hero's attention was drawn to an orc hunt in a previously unknown hut. Marin curiously imagined the exquisite taste of roasted orc meat. A loud voice was heard from the side, suddenly calling the knight by name. The red-haired girl happily recognized her old friend in the warrior. The acquaintance laughed cheerfully, surprised that the exhausted knight was still alive. The talkative acquaintance hastened to introduce the members of her squad to the knight. Marin was introduced to the smiling leader of the group, Olga. Mickey introduced Marin to her companions as an experienced and powerful mercenary. The girls admitted that they had been looking for a fourth member for the squad for a long time. The knight doubted the reliability of a group without melee fighters. A friend complained about the lack of swordsmen in their current adventure. Mickey resolutely extended her palm, calling the warrior to beneficial cooperation. Marin was invited to be the vanguard in the expedition to the orc hut. The mercenary was taken aback by such an unexpected proposal to work together. The group quickly moved towards the target through dense forest thickets. The enraged orc suddenly attacked the archer with his huge log. The enchanted arrow flew swiftly straight into the eye of the ferocious monster. The girl enthusiastically praised her comrade for the precise, fatal blow to the head. A deafening magical explosion instantly blew the enraged monster's skull into pieces. The giant green hand fell limply to the ground after the battle was over. The girl rejoiced, counting the dozens of defeated enemies and the power of her spell. The elf noted that Marin's support made their dangerous hunt easier. An unexpected roar made the heroes suspect the beginning of a powerful and dangerous earthquake. The enraged horde of ferocious orcs rushed forward in wild rage. The archer realized with horror that the noise of the previous battle had attracted reinforcements. The group panicked and fled, realizing the enemy's colossal numerical superiority. The tiny companion tripped in his haste and fell awkwardly onto the dusty road. The huge orc raised his massive club over the terrified Hecatha. The little sorceress screamed in horror, expecting a fatal blow. The girl's pupil reflected the shadow of the monster raising his weapon. Thick blood suddenly covered the stunned heroine's face. Marin quickly attacked the enemies, protecting his faithful companions. The comrades hurried to Hecatha, checking on her after the battle. The silhouette of a knight towered among the corpses under the scarlet sky. The last enemy roared in rage as the arrows pierced him. Tired Olga complained to her friend about severe pain in her shoulder. The companions were amazed by Marin's incredible power as they surveyed the battlefield. The companion in the hat thanked the knight, suddenly noticing his disappearance. The little companion's sensitive nose caught an enticing aroma in the dungeon. The elf was amazed by the smell of roasting meat among the gloomy corridors of the dungeon. Marin Glass lit a fire alone and started cooking. The elf angrily scolded her partner for being so secretive, suggesting that he add more mushrooms. The severed head of a large orc lay ominously near the boiling cauldron. The heroine realized in horror that the knight was preparing the monster's meat. The juicy thighs of a butchered orc sizzled appetizingly in a hot frying pan. Marin Glass compared the smell of the trophy to a mixture of pork and beef. The knight took a decisive bite, appreciating the unusual taste of his prey. The knight appreciated the magnificent taste of the tender meat with pleasure. The meat juice exploded in my mouth, revealing the true taste of my prey. Marin Glass admired the dish's rich and incredibly tender texture. The companions watched the meal in horror and screamed hysterically. The warrior decided to sprinkle the meat with salt and pepper while frying. The heavy-armored soldier was confident of the excellent quality of his dinner. The hero enjoyed the aroma of pepper, planning to add vegetables to the meat. The elf, in a daze, wished that this nightmare was a dream. Marin Glass called his partners, continuing to enthusiastically chew his trophy. The knight was determined to use monster meat in future dishes. The comrade carefully touched the knight's shoulder, interrupting his strange meal. The swordsman did not condemn Marin for his unusual tastes. The kind companion offered the sullen warrior to try her homemade biscuits. The knight resolutely refused the biscuits and the offered dried beef. A huge green orc suddenly jumped out of the dense forest thicket. The heroes instantly drew their weapons and prepared for a fierce battle. The enraged monster swung his heavy club for a crushing blow. The knight skillfully blocked the enemy's powerful attack with his strong shield. The friends unleashed a barrage of arrows, magic, and steel on the monster. Marin continued cooking while his companions sobbed in utter despair. The weary group set up camp in the gloomy vaults of a deep dungeon. Marin Glass decided to spend the night apart from his companions. The bored elf watched her partner take up the first post. The stern knight wished everyone good night and instantly fell asleep. In the silence of the stone cave, Only the measured crackling of the fire could be heard. A mysterious light suddenly broke through the narrow slit of the warrior's helmet. The cheerful companions discussed old jokes and their past battles. The comrades by the fire inquired about the progress in the search for dry firewood. The image of a beautiful smiling girl appeared in the knight's memory. The sharp cry of the name instantly caused Maranglass to wake up. The awakened warrior found armed and gloomy companions around him. Maranglass asked in bewilderment about the reasons for such a strange awakening. The shining magic staff froze a centimeter from the knight's helmet. The partner ordered the hero to remain still and answer questions. In the elf's hands, the stone of magical level assessment glimmered ominously. The trembling archer asked in horror about the meaning of his titles. The magical interface mercilessly revealed the title of the killer of his own kind. The darkness of the helmet's slits hid the true reaction of the revealed hero. The bloodied blade confirmed the death of more than 100 representatives of the human race. The lone figure of a warrior towered over a mountain of lifeless human bodies. The archer was horrified by the damage bonus against the human race. The warrior angrily reminded that criminal records are unacceptable among decent adventurers. The companion demanded an explanation, sincerely hoping for a simple system error. Marin maintained an oppressive silence, hiding his face behind a cold steel visor. The knight's comrades surrounded him, suspecting him of having had a treacherous intention to betray them. The warrior bowed his head low, quietly apologizing to his shocked companions. The blonde admitted the impossibility of cooperation, despite his partner's frighteningly high level. The swordsman decisively declared his complete and final loss of trust in the killer. The group leader harshly ordered Marin to leave the squad immediately and forever. The knight meekly accepted the harsh exile and prepared to go out into the night. The knight left the camp silently, leaving his companions in complete bewilderment. 100 years ago, a completely different story began in the Tirsan forest. The enraged green goblin screamed and launched into a brutal attack. The warrior in light armor skillfully repelled the attack of small monsters. The smiling archer took aim and announced the capture of her target. One well-aimed arrow instantly pierced 2 forest goblins at once. The lifeless bodies of the monsters remained lying on the bloody forest path. The blonde warrior put away her sword and inquired about the condition of her comrades. The companions sincerely admired the incredible skill and accuracy of the experienced archer. The squad continued on their way, planning to destroy all remaining enemies in the forest. Blonde Charlotte smiled happily as she completed the paperwork for the award. The young knight Marin nodded obediently to his leader, preparing to move out. The companions walked away slowly, discussing the insolence of the young girl from the guild. The squad went deeper into the forest, wondering about the strange disappearance of the local monsters. The head of the group was surprised that the monsters began to hide from people for the first time. A corpse's hand suddenly grabbed his shoulder, interrupting his calm path. Bloody ghosts with red eyes silently surrounded the shocked warrior. The knight fought off the voices in horror, accusing him of being alone. A giant dead eye filled the entire vision with its icy gaze. Marin woke up abruptly in a cold sweat in the night camp. The warrior, exhausted by the nightmare, suddenly woke up on his bed in a cold sweat. Maranglass breathed heavily, trying to comprehend reality in the quiet room. Down below in the spacious guild hall, the adventurers began their new day. The knight walked down into the hall, instantly drawing unkind glances. The frightened newcomers whispered in panic, urging him not to look the warrior in the eyes. Those around him angrily discussed rumors about the extortion and cruelty of the sullen knight. Maranglass only tightened his grip on the strap of his backpack, ignoring the people's anger. The friendly guild receptionist politely invited the knight to approach the counter. The girl solemnly presented the puzzled warrior with a certificate of promotion to C rank. The employee explained that ranks are now assigned automatically based on accumulated achievements. Marin sighed with relief as he examined the new rank promotion certificate. The guild receptionist graciously showed the knight a list of newly available quests. The warrior thought hard, choosing a suitable contract from among the many offers. The knight was intently studying information about hunting dangerous harpies. Maranglass imagined with curiosity the taste of the fried meat of the winged monster. A rude shout suddenly interrupted the knight's calm thoughts in the guild. Dahlia sarcastically asked if the killer of his kin was enjoying a quiet life. The elf brazenly asked the hero about the veracity of the rumors about the murders. The fair-haired bully continued to openly mock the stern warrior's loneliness. Dahlia's mysterious partner suddenly interrupted his mocking tirade. The red-haired beast woman smiled confidently, demonstrating her determination. Dahlia solemnly introduced the girl as the leader of the new group. Imutar cheerfully told the knight her full sonorous name. Dahlia hastily asked his new partner not to say too much. The stats window confirmed the priest's high level and class. Maranglass suspected hallucinations due to the girl's strange class. The beast woman confirmed her role as a priest, which caused the knight's confusion. Imutar looked as far removed from the usual image of a healer as possible. The elf admitted that he had been deliberately searching for a group of other races. The warrior was amazed by the name of the detachment that united these unusual misanthropes. Imitar approved of the knight's candidacy, finding his intimidating title extremely appropriate. The elf sarcastically linked her partner's lack of understanding with the shortness of human ears. A sharp movement of the hand sealed the beginning of a dubious but necessary alliance. The beast woman invited the warrior to join her squad, impressed by his bloody military past. Marin expressed doubt when faced with a tough argument about the lack of choice. The knight walked away from the guild stand amid whispers and sidelong glances. The hero reluctantly agreed to temporary cooperation in order to find a new group. Imitar was overjoyed at the swordsman's correct choice, accepting him into the team. The leader called for an immediate response to test combat skills and compatibility. The girl's determined look marked her readiness for the first joint test. The leader pointed to a poster with a target in a dangerous dungeon. The squad fearlessly entered the dark and damp grotto. Furious monsters suddenly attacked the heroes from the darkness. Imitar ordered the immediate clearing of the area from enemies. Marin covered himself with a shield from the rapidly diving creatures. The knight appreciated the opportunity to reach the enemy in a jump. A well-aimed arrow from his partner made the heavy warrior's task easier. The elf mockingly suggested that the swordsman take on the big game. The huge bird dived down with a furious cry. The beast woman ordered the man to immediately cover the group with a shield. Imitar deftly pushed off with her foot from the knight's outstretched shield. The beast woman rose into the air for a crushing blow from above. The warrior's powerful fist slammed the flying creature into the ground. The comrades looked with cold blood at the fallen body of the huge monster. The leader praised the warrior for his excellent reaction in battle. The elf acknowledged the effectiveness of their suddenly coordinated teamwork. The band decided to take a short break after their lightning victory. The sudden appearance of the strange creature made Marin very wary. A tiny pink animal meowed cutely at the hero's feet. The companion ridiculed the knight's ignorance of popular living dolls. Dahlia showed a rare living doll worth 2 gold pieces. The elf praised her magical pet for cleaning its feathers well. The girl explained the golem's unpretentiousness and its usefulness in everyday life. The companions watched with irony the friend's tenderness towards the doll. Marin's sudden appearance made the archer shudder violently in fear. Imitar strictly forbade the knight to eat the valuable golem. The squad was delighted to have successfully completed half of the difficult task. The beast woman asked the elf about the warrior's hidden fighting talents. The aroma of roasting poultry made the leader sniff suspiciously and greedily. Imitar accused Marin of secretly and single-handedly eating all the spoils. Marin deftly sliced the fillet over a hot frying pan. The warrior generously seasoned the roasting meat with fragrant spices. Juicy pieces of harpy sizzled appetizingly in the oil. The knight presented his comrades with a finished dish made from the monster. The hero tasted the fried flesh of the monster with interest. The taste of the game caused the swordsman sincere admiration. The meat turned out to be much more tender than regular domestic chicken. The companions, horrified, demanded that the meal be stopped immediately. Marin calmly invited the ladies to share his dinner. The girls shuddered at the warrior's frightening culinary preferences. Marin recalled the anatomical differences between harpies and humans. Dahlia was horrified by the nightmare she saw on her second outing. The knight silently showed his companions a plate of fried meat. Imitar fought desperately against her sudden appetite for the monster. The warrior urged people not to look at this culinary blasphemy. The swordsman persistently offered his companions to try a piece of game. The beast woman realized with a shudder how tempting the meat smelled. Imitar resisted the temptation fiercely, clutching her head. The knight suddenly remembered the dish stewing in the cauldron. Marin looked contentedly under the lid of the perfectly cooked roast. The knight proudly presented the stewed leg of the flying harpy. Imitar was struck by the strange choice of meat for the evening meal. Marin calmly began to eat the monster's sinewy limb. The texture of the harpy's meat reminded the warrior of a soft, sweet pudding. The high collagen content keeps this dish firm. The swordsman thought about the need for hot sauce with his food. The elf finally lost her composure due to her partner's behavior. The knight calmly invited his companions to share his strange dinner. The paralyzing poison from the claws suddenly knocked the knight down. Imitar shocked the squad by admitting to the lack of healing magic. Imitar admitted that she was too lazy to learn tedious healing spells. A new harpy suddenly attacked the squad, attracted by the noise of the dispute. The beast woman resolutely prepared to use destructive magic against the enemy. A furious stream of flame incinerated the monster along with its small pet. Dahlia despaired when she found only the charred remains of Forco. Acrid smoke slowly cleared over the scorched earth after the explosion. The archer furiously blamed her partner for the death of her valuable doll. Imitar guiltily made excuses to her friend for accidentally missing the spell. The guild member happily accepted the bags containing the parts of the defeated harpy. The exhausted heroes sullenly decided not to eat monster meat anymore. Dahlia admitted to being completely exhausted after a hard day. Marin carefully packed the remains of his loot into his duffel bag. Imitar watched the knight's gastronomic persistence with horror. The beast woman advised her partner to finally use the magical inventory. The knight was amazed to discover a long-forgotten interface function. Marin realized the stupidity of his decision to carry heavy loads on his own. The swordsman bitterly reproached himself for his ignorance of elementary things. The helmet hid the hero's extreme annoyance with himself. Imatar acknowledged the excellent combat compatibility of their small squad. The leader officially invited Marin to join the permanent group. The beast woman suggested to the knight that they formally join the group. The companions acknowledged the clear advantage of traveling together over loneliness. Imatar was overjoyed to be joining the squad. The leader ran off to complete the registration, leaving her partners to wait. Marin officially recognized the elf as his new battle partner. The elf said the knight's name out loud with undisguised interest. The warrior involuntarily remembered his former glorious comrade Charlotte. Marin thoughtfully thanked the archer for her attention to him. The beast woman brought the papers, officially establishing the creation of their team. The heroes studied the final name of their new group intently. Imatar solemnly shouted out the official name of their new group. The elf was furious at the leader's ridiculous decision. The beast woman admitted that she overheard Marin's casual muttering. Imatar chose the name Total Chaos from her heart. The warrior ordered her companions to obey the leader's will without question. The archer fell into complete despair because of the shameful name. Marin calmly decided to get down to cooking at home as soon as possible. Imatar was surprised and asked about the knight's plans for the evening. The girl suggested throwing a noisy party in honor of the union. The knight tried unsuccessfully to refuse to participate in the celebration. Imatar ceremoniously announced the official name of their new group. Dahlia was furious at the ridiculous and shameful team name. The leader explained that she borrowed this sonorous word from Maron. The beast woman admitted that the name Chaos immediately sank into her soul. The warrior ordered her companions to obey the will of their leader without question. The elf fell into complete despair because of the shameful name of the team. Marin calmly decided to quickly start preparing the remaining meat. Imatar was surprised and asked about the knight's immediate plans for the evening. The girl energetically suggested throwing a noisy party in honor of the union. The swordsman tried unsuccessfully to politely decline the noisy festive festivities. Hexarim's adventurers began their long journey at D rank. The Golden Seal confirmed success in passing the standard guild exams. The highest rank required recognition of combat skills as truly outstanding. The knight in the scarlet cloak froze before the glow of the secret test. Imatar began her story while Marin Glass silently studied the dinner. The beast woman bitterly admitted that her brothers remained slaves. The slave trader promised freedom to his relatives in exchange for long-term labor. Imatar clenched her fists in determination, determined to ransom her family. Marin scratched his helmet in confusion, not understanding the essence of the recent revolution. The companions were amazed at the knight's complete ignorance of world upheavals. The elf told how people had been vilely enslaving other races for centuries. People were interested in the beauty of the elves, the skill of the dwarves, and the strength of the beastmen. The narrator's family suffered the same fate in the bloody dungeons. The prisoners were locked up and cruelly used in dark, damp dungeons. Magical cages held those who desperately tried to escape securely. Ages of human cruelty have always led slaves to a terrible end. The oppressed peoples united into an alliance and began a great revolution. A bloody racial war broke out, uniting hammer, axe, and magic. The free races threatened the people with a full-scale war, demanding the abolition of slavery. The tenacity of the people met with the fury of those who had nothing to lose. The people signed a pact, forever banning the shameful slave trade. The treaty obliged people to strictly respect the borders of the lands of other races. Oppressed peoples left the shadows and began to live openly. The girls admitted that the pact opened the way for them to join the guild. Imatar immediately became an adventurer in order to make quick money. Knight Marin Glass asked Dahlia about her aspirations in life. Dahlia was determined to become a wise elder of her native forest. The burden of leadership in her clan traditionally fell on the firstborn. The elf's younger sister refused to accept this heavy duty. Dahlia clenched her fist furiously, wishing she could protect the forest better than anyone else. The elders told Dahlia to return with great achievements before the deadline. The elf realized that rank A was not enough for triumph. The heroine's glances met, confirming the seriousness of their hidden intentions. Dahlia sincerely thanked the knight for his loyal support. Imatar slyly asked what Marin really wanted. The warrior stood in silence in front of the memorial plaque on the tree. Knight Voice sighed heavily, not wanting to stir up old wounds. Marin clenched his fist painfully, suppressing the sudden surge of anger. The swordsman calmly declared his burning desire to kill the dragon. The companions were frozen with horror upon hearing of such a dangerous goal. A furious dragon incinerated a village in a warrior's bloody past. Marin vowed to do something important when he met the monster. The companions considered the knight's crazy statement to be just a stupid joke. The amazed beast woman froze over her mug, not believing her ears. The girls cheerfully joked about the exorbitant ambitions of their silent leader. The elf reminded about the need for a high rank to hunt. The squad solemnly sealed their alliance with the clinking of mugs and a common promise. A sunny morning illuminated the city, marking the beginning of a new chapter. In the morning, Marin diligently prepared breakfast for his newly formed group. The warrior fell into despair when he discovered that his wallet was completely empty. The knight reluctantly poured the expensive oil onto the hot frying pan. The warrior confidently activated magical access to the vault. Marin Glass retrieved the necessary supplies from the blue portal. The fresh meat remained in perfect condition thanks to the power of magic. The cook was satisfied with the reliability of his portable warehouse. The swordsman carefully cracked an egg to make a thick batter. The chef carefully coated the pieces of meat in breadcrumbs. The blanks plunged into the hot oil with a loud hiss. Marin listened with pleasure to the delicious sounds of frying dinner. The warrior deftly turned the golden pieces over for double frying. The roasted harpy thigh was finally ready to be served. A sharp fork pierced the golden and very crispy meat delicacy. The cook was pleased that he had cut the juicy harpy into large enough pieces. Marin put the first portion of food into his mouth with obvious pleasure. The knight appreciated the divine combination of crispy breading and tender meat. Hot sweet juice splashed with each new greedy bite. The delicate taste of the harpy reminded the warrior of the meat of a fine sea crab. The swordsman devoured his dinner contentedly, delighted by the large amount of food that had been prepared. Dahlia's sudden shout made Marin look up from his delicious meal. The elf furiously pounded on the door, demanding that the sleepyhead wake up immediately. The door to Marin's room creaked open before his unexpected guest. Dahlia was amazed that the knight wore a helmet even while resting. The elf hastily suggested discussing an extremely urgent and secret matter. She reported with alarm that Imitar was experiencing sudden and serious problems. The warrior let his companion in, deciding to continue the important conversation without prying ears. The archer, in a rage, accused Marin of constantly eating dangerous monster meat. Dahlia angrily waved away the food, considering the fate of the priestess to be the priority goal. The girl secretly asked the warrior for money to urgently rescue her friend. Marin Glass froze in complete bewilderment at such a bold request. The enraged swordsman ordered the stunned elf to get away immediately. The elf reproached the knight for his impatience and threatened to kick him out. The heroine told her partner about Imitar's deception by her former owner. Marin asked again whether the warrior had really been so brazenly deceived. The partners remembered Imitar's desire to buy back her younger brothers. The elf's fist clenched in anger at the mention of the vile slave owner. The red light caught sight of a prisoner put up for auction. The elf revealed her master's plan to mock the beast woman. Imitar begged humbly, listening to the impossible conditions for the ransom of her brothers. Marin realized the need to pay a huge 20 gold coins. The golden cascade confirmed that the sum was out of reach for honest mercenaries. Gold coins rained down, symbolizing 2 million local yen. The proud warrior bowed her head, begging to save her little brothers. The elf offered to borrow money, reminding them of the brotherhood of races. Marin refused his partner, reminding him of their short acquaintance. The warrior doubted the loan, admitting a lack of funds. The archer became thoughtful when she mentioned the helpless little children. The iron helmet hid the thoughts of the warrior listening to his ally. The knight accused the elf of trying to make him feel sorry for her. The girl promised to repay the debt double with huge interest. The partners fell silent, pondering the situation in oppressive silence. The elf clenched her fist, realizing there was no other way out. The girl asked to bend over, about to confide a dangerous secret. The archer asked the knight about the presence of the wind attribute. The flame reminded me of the superiority of magic with an innate gift. The magic circle confirmed the advantage of the native element for strikes. The drawing of a baby symbolized the receipt of attributes at birth. The shadow of the great magician indicated the rarity of several elements. The elf looked into the helmet, promising a reward for assistance. The heroine bestowed a blessing on the warrior, granting him the attribute of wind. The girl jumped up when the knight doubted the transfer of the attribute. The angry elf swore by the forest, convincing him of the truth of her words. The knight placed his hand on the table, agreeing to the deal. Marin headed for the exit, his tired partner following him. The deserted streets greeted the partners with a cold calm before their journey. The archer asked the warrior about the plan for collecting monetary capital. The warrior suggested selling the trophies on the black market. The elf screamed when she learned of the intention to visit the dangerous dungeon. Marin recalled that there was no way to save the Imitar brothers. Locked quests demonstrated the guild's prohibition on difficult missions. Violators faced severe fines and temporary bans. The knight reasoned that the illegal route would take time. The journey to the dungeons took several days, making the undertaking impossible. The elf asked where her partner was going to get the funds. The girl mentioned her debts, deciding to add to her earnings. The heroine asked about savings. He confirmed their absence. The archer offered to sell valuable property for money. Marin opened his inventory, examining the contents of the duffel bags. The warrior's gaze fell on a pair of elegant earrings. The partners agreed to meet and set out to look for quick gold. The sun was setting, painting the rooftops orange. The cloaked warrior descended into a dark city alley. A hooded figure slipped through the heavy wooden door. The puzzled merchant asked about the purpose of the strange guest's visit. The hidden hero expressed a desire to sell the goods to a buyer. The traveler placed elegant earrings with stones on the counter. The buyer examined the earrings and suggested taking the treasure to experienced jewelers. The man ordered the guest to wait, not hiding his shock. The merchant identified the rarest artifact, the Pleiades shard, which had long since disappeared. The hero explained that he received the jewelry as a gift. The glittering, luxurious estate became a target for funds. The little animal was trembling from humiliation. Its owner was mocking it. The blonde sat arrogantly, enjoying the helplessness of the exhausted slave. The heavy collar with a lock reminded him of the end of freedom. Imitar's furious gaze shone with a thirst for reprisal against the enemy. The warrior's sensitive ear twitched as a familiar voice called. The captive turned around, amazed by the appearance of her faithful forest comrades. The elf and the knight entered, showing their readiness to fight. Imitar asked why the elf had brought the gluttonous strange man. The archer promised to reveal the details. The warrior shook his heavy bag. Marin announced the availability of the sum, demanding a deal be made. The beast woman thought shyly about accepting help from a human. The vial owner studied the bag, wondering about the source of the wealth. The man looked at the gold in amazement, not believing it. Imitar demanded the release of the brothers, pointing out the authenticity of the money. The greedy blonde man claimed that the terms were violated through other people's money. The beast woman froze, realizing the slave owner's unwillingness to comply with the agreement. The angry elf objected, reminding him of the family's right to buy out. The scoundrel ordered the servants to bring the documents, hiding his intentions with a smile. The captive looked at Dahlia, realizing her vulnerability before her master. The owner approached the mercenaries and thanked them for their long wait. The servant brought the little beastmen, the younger brothers of the unfortunate warrior. Imitar rushed towards the children in tears, hugging them. The beast woman was crying with happiness. The knight was watching the scene. The girl hugged her brothers, realizing the cruelty of enslaving tiny children. The knight clenched his fist angrily, noticing the thinness of those emaciated by hunger. The merchant showed the slaves documents, confirming their identities. Imitar tore up the papers, announcing the completion of the deal. The warrior's eyes flashed as she used fire. The flames consumed the documents. The freed brothers huddled close to their sister. The master reminded Imitar that she remained his slave. The knight waved away the chains. The beast woman hugged her frightened brothers. Marin raised the pouch, announcing the ransom of Imitar's freedom. The elf Dahlia froze, not expecting the warrior's noble gesture. The beast woman refused help, considering saving her relatives important. The warrior ignored the objections and asked the slave trader about the girl's price. The helmeted hero remained calm despite the objections. The greedy owner laughed when he announced that he was putting the item up for auction. The merchant refused the knight, deciding to extract maximum profit. The partners were offered to buy Imitar at auction as a commodity. Imitar was furious when she learned of the sale of the captive. The elf angrily accused the man of lying, not believing his excuses. The blonde cynically stated that the laws allow the owner to dispose of slaves. The heroine cursed the people's vile tricks, restraining the urge to attack. The knight gritted his teeth and coldly called the enemy's arguments childish. The travelers blamed the enemy for not selling Imitar, prolonging their torment. Marin announced his participation in the auction, shocking the beast woman with his decision. The warrior ordered Imitar to wait while she searched for motives for help. The knight's heavy helmet glittered, hiding his true feelings behind the metal. The hero spoke about the duty of adults to protect and guide the young. In the memory, the woman tenderly held the child, giving him warmth. The palm fell on the child's head, instilling faith and protection. The nun was delighted to have a shelter, the only safe place for the disadvantaged. The fox cubs begged their older sister to protect them from the mortal threat. The heroine realized her duty to stay close to the younger ones, caring for them. The knight calmly confirmed his understanding of the order and his readiness to carry it out. Imitar angrily warned that she would not forgive her allies for breaking their promises. The elf trusted Marin's plan, promising the captive a meeting at the auction. The beast woman hugged the crying children under the contemptuous gaze of her satisfied enemy. The blonde scoffed cynically, considering the attempts to save the victim pathetic. The captive glared at her tormentor, pressing the frightened beastman against her. The slave trader grabbed the captive roughly by the chin, demonstrating his power. The enemy smiled madly, promising the beast woman that it would be impossible to escape from him. Imitar listened in horror to the ominous promise of imminent slavery. The villain ordered the guards to prepare for the auction, while the warrior protected the orphans. The slave trader's vast mansion glowed ominously as it welcomed the participants of the shameful auction. The manager cynically introduced a slave accused of serious violent crimes. The elf and the knight watched silently as the price reached 4 gold pieces. The heroine quickly calculated her savings, hoping to buy her friend back at the average price. Marin watched thoughtfully, waiting for the moment to make the decisive bet. The auctioneer's voice announced the start of the bidding for the representative of a different race. The auctioneer loudly presented a female beast wolf with healing skills and combat training. Imitar cast a fierce look at the hall, full of hidden hatred. The girl clenched her shackled wrists fiercely, hoping for quick relief. The manager cynically emphasized the warrior's physical superiority over an ordinary person. The villain anticipated a huge profit, watching the appearance of the most valuable slave. The archer anxiously informed Marin about the rapid depletion of the monetary reserve. The tormentor grinned maliciously, mockingly calling the attempts to ransom the heroine pathetic. The mysterious stranger in green decided to stop the heroes at any cost. The manager excitedly announced a high starting price, opening the bidding for the captive. The man in the green hat confidently raised the sign with the first bet. Bidder number 57 offered an incredibly high price. The heroes froze in shock as the price skyrocketed to 20 gold. Imitar realized in horror that an exorbitant sum had been offered for her life. The captive did not believe that the allies had such huge reserves. The elf grabbed her head in panic, considering the bet a crazy waste. Knight number 21 raised his hand in a show of unwavering determination. The manager excitedly clarified the maximum bet size in front of the tense audience. Marin calmly announced a bet of 50 gold, shocking his partner. The warrior calmly explained to his ally that the stated amount was not the limit. The slave trader froze in amazement, realizing the inevitable collapse of his cruel plans. The steward, in a cold sweat, asked the knight again about the 50 gold pieces. The entire room began to doubt Marin's solvency, expecting a shameful request for an installment plan. The auctioneer strictly reminded about the rule of immediate payment of the bid in cash. The elf called out to the warrior in confusion, surprised by his movement toward the stage. The knight ignored the guards, and resolutely approached the captive on his knees. Imitar looked at her mighty savior with timid hope. The beast woman watched in a daze as the golden rain began to fall around her. Marin raised his hand, summoning a cascade of coins from the magical space. The warrior, through his visor, calmly clarified the sufficiency of the presented mountain of gold. The embittered slave trader screamed in rage, not understanding the origin of the wealth. Imitar looked at the mountain of gold in amazement, not believing in salvation. The auctioneer's loud cry officially confirmed the sale of the captive, marking the end of the nightmare. The guild building shone peacefully with lights at night after the auction ended. The little beastmen rushed towards their freed sister with joyful cries. The warrior hugged the crying children tightly, celebrating her long-awaited freedom. The elf indignantly scolded Marin for his secrecy, demanding an explanation about the wealth. The archer acknowledged the success of the plan, while the heroine tenderly hugged her charges. The knight remained stoic in silence, his helmet hiding any emotion. Imitar sincerely thanked her savior, admitting to having no ideas for a reward. The rumbling in the fox's stomachs eloquently reminded the heroes about dinner. The knight cheerfully offered the hungry children a snack while the others watched. The beast woman tearfully confessed to her friend that she didn't know how to thank her. Imitar, with a smile, promised to become a faithful comrade in the common cause. The archer suddenly smelled a delicious oily scent coming from her partner's armor. The girl realized in shock that the enticing aroma of meat belonged to Marin. An angry elf burst into the room, demanding that he stop his actions. The warrior calmly turned around with the plate, not understanding the reason for the displeasure. The hungry fox cub swallowed the first piece of the treat with great appetite. The happy children enthusiastically admitted that they had never tasted anything more delicious. The archer fiercely interrogated her partner, outraged by the questionable quality of food for the orphans. The knight confidently offered the children roast meat, noting the strength of the animals' stomachs. The warrior confirmed that the growing bodies of the orphans are capable of digesting any food. Marin calmly admitted that he had prepared a delicious dish from the tough meat of the harpy. Imitar watched in horror as her charges devoured the suspicious treat. The priestess tried in vain to stop the meal, considering the culinary masterpiece a dangerous abomination. The little foxes eagerly demanded more while their sister was in confusion. The girl smelled a strange aroma and froze, struggling with conflicting feelings. The beast woman resolutely reached for the food, wanting to check the safety of the strange dish. The heroine was afraid of frightening the children with her poisoning and ruining their appetite. Overcoming her disgust, the warrior decided to eat the meat for the sake of the peace of her loved ones. Imitar swallowed the first piece resignedly, preparing herself for the convulsions of poisoning. The warrior's pupils suddenly dilated in shock at the pleasant taste. The beast woman's whole body trembled while the elf tried to figure out the reason. The archer screamed in fear about poison, suspecting her partner of the crime. The priestess was stunned by the juiciness of the meat, while the children snatched the plate away. Imitar couldn't believe her feelings, amazed by the incredible softness of the harpy's flesh. Marin calmly inquired about the quality of the dish, causing the girl to make a joyful sound. The warrior quickly took the children away, burning with shame and promising revenge. Dahlia turned around in confusion at the knight's call, caught off guard by his stern manner. The swordsman sternly declared debt bondage, demanding the lion's share of the proceeds. The enraged elf called her partner an insensitive bastard due to the harsh conditions. Dahlia seriously demanded that the knight give her the long-promised monetary reward. Under the bright moon, the heroine grumbled about having to walk at night. Marin sought silence for the spirits while the elf divined the blessing. The girl told the warrior to take off his gloves for magical contact with the skin. Dahlia carefully pulled the heavy armor off the knight's arm for the ritual. The elf told about guardian spirits who endow babies with magical talents at birth. The heroine explained that an elf transmits the blessing of his spirit only once in his life. The girl emphasized that only spouses or true saviors receive such a gift. Dahlia sincerely called Maren a savior for helping to free her comrades. The elf archer called out to Sylph, concentrating powerful magical energy in her palm. The bewildered knight froze as a sudden gust of wind swirled around his armor. An invisible force of spirit enveloped the hand, reminding him of the greedy hunt for elves. The heroine told of the suffering of the people while the whirlwind tormented the space around. Maren listened silently to the tragic story of his relatives who had taken their lives. The archer called perfect memory a curse that prevents one from forgetting the nightmares of the past. The girl confessed to a burning hatred for the indifferent witnesses and the guilty parties. Exhaling, the warrior released her inner power in the form of a bright magical glow. Streams of air obediently swirled around her palm, obeying her angry will. A strong gust forced the knight to cover his helmet with his hand, protecting it from the dust. The knight looked at his palms in amazement, feeling the acquisition of the wind a tribute. The companion dryly reminded the hero of her deep hatred for humanity. The elf added sternly that the magical blessing did not change her attitude towards people. Maren stood silently, watching the strange glow of magical sparks on the armor. The next morning, the squad arrived at the massive building of the Hexalum Guild headquarters. Imitar was the first to notice her friends and waved enthusiastically at them from the crowd. The animal woman shared her success in finding a nanny for small children. The girl proudly announced that she had received the status of a full-fledged free citizen. The squad leader demonstrated a lucrative contract to clear out monsters in a cave. The archer expressed strong dissatisfaction with the need to fight in the midst of stinking mud and swamps. The knight studied the leaflet with interest, wondering about the taste of the mud monster. The companions hurried to the exit of the village, discussing the cart they had called. The group walked slowly through the city streets, anticipating the story of the cave creatures. Imitar was determined to find a permanent home, abandoning the permanent hotels. The sudden appearance of a luxurious carriage in the alley made the squad wary. The beast woman frightenedly made excuses, denying any involvement in hiring the expensive transport. The heroes turned around in alarm at the strange noise coming from the depths of the luxurious carriage. The carriage door swung open, revealing a timely arrival of a stranger with a sly grin. Hearing the familiar vile voice, the warrior turned pale from horror and memories. The arrogant blonde smiled maliciously, revealing himself to be the cruel former master of Imitar. The knight dryly stated the completion of the deal and inquired about the purpose of the stranger's visit. The former owner sarcastically admitted that he began to miss the girl very much after selling her. The man offered to cancel the contract and return his former property to him. Maren froze in menacing silence, surrounded by the dense and dark energy of rage. The elf furiously accused the blonde of lying and attempting to commit a dirty trick. Imotar bared her teeth as she listened to the harsh orders to be silent from her former tormentor. The blonde reminded us of the strength of the guards, whose level exceeded the capabilities of the heroes. The atmosphere grew tense when the full name of the legendary Lord Marin Glass was announced. The knight flatly refused 100 gold coins, defending his companion's freedom. The villain shuddered in horror, catching the warrior's icy and deadly gaze. The elf snapped angrily at the man, ordering him to watch his foul language. The merchant desperately raised the price, but his companions coldly rejected any offers. The beast woman clenched her fists resolutely, declaring her unwavering faith in the knight. The blond man, with an evil grin, offered 200 gold pieces for the slave. The knight thoughtfully placed his hand to his chin while his companion stirred him. The warrior firmly reminded that the transaction was invalid, due to the destruction of previous documents. Maren sternly promised not to give the offender any slack if he dared to harm him. The man gritted his teeth in rage, calling the united heroes a pathetic rabble. The former owner, with a sinister grin, admitted that there was no possibility of a peaceful solution. The villain was looking forward to the pleasure of dealing with the impudent and rebellious beast woman. The merchant, his face bloodied, furiously ordered his men to take the girl by force. Imitar launched into a mad attack, knocking down the insolent scoundrel with a powerful blow. The enraged beast woman declared that she would never obey his orders again. An armed guard rushed into battle, shouting insults at the slave. Maren instantly appeared behind the enemy, ordering him not to draw his sword in vain. With one sharp movement, the knight smashed the attacking warrior's head into the stones. The enemy warrior mockingly invited the heroes to take part in a bloody battle. The warrior's heavy hand silently picked up a weighty stone for a return throw. The knight's powerful throw shook the ground, crushing the defenses of his pursuers in the alley. Seizing the initiative, Maren easily threw the guard away, breaking his weapon. The last defender collapsed to the ground, choking on blood after the knight's crushing blow. The shocked merchant was horrified to realize the ease with which the heroes overcame the guards. Maren calmly revealed his true level 95, shocking the enemy. Imitar grabbed her former master by the hair in a furious grip, intending to end the long-standing argument. A deafening cry of pain pierced the sky as the beast woman released her pent-up rage. The elf hurried her companion, reminding her of the need to quickly go to the cart. Imitar smiled contentedly, looking at the beaten scoundrel and rejoicing in his victory. The girl stretched with relief, leaving the defeated enemy lying in the dust. The humiliated blonde helplessly threatened to kill while the knight silently towered over him. The knight ominously confirmed the rumors of his cruelty by paralyzing the enemy's will. The knight sternly forbade the scoundrel to approach the team, which had been found with difficulty. A powerful blow from an armored boot finally crushed the will of the defeated and humiliated enemy. A deafening roar behind the merchant marked the end of this shameful pursuit. Leaving a final warning, Marin calmly walked away from the destroyed carriage. Soon the squad descended into a cave where mysterious and dangerous crystals shimmered. The elf ordered her allies to use fire magic against the surrounding slimy creatures. Imitar instantly unleashed a furious inferno flame, incinerating all the monsters in the depths. After the battle, the archer angrily scolded her friend for her complete lack of long training. The knight proudly showed his companions a bowl of thick, suspicious gruel. The beast woman cautiously inquired about the edibility of the dish, remembering her previous unsuccessful experience. The knight carefully ate the piece of monster, not detecting the specific smell of earth. Marin silently tasted the strange substance, noting its striking difference from the mud. The warrior chewed the viscous mass with disgust, which resembled papier-mâché with the taste of chewing gum. The hero studied the system window intently, longingly remembering the remains of the roasted harpy. Imitar warmly thanked the warrior for saving her family and vowed to repay the debt. The knight firmly refused the money, ordering that the savings be spent on feeding the younger ones. The archer persistently questioned Marin about the sources of his sudden suspicious wealth. The warrior maintained an imperturbable silence, denying any involvement in dangerous or dishonest dealings. The beast woman was horrified to hear about the sale of her friend's memento. The girl clenched her fists in rage, trying to understand the motives for losing the valuable item. The embarrassed beast woman confidently confirmed to her comrades that everything was fine now. The noble Marin warmly invited his companion to remain on the team forever. The elf tenderly hugged her friend, recognizing her as the new leader of the general squad. Having finally regained her spirit, the warrior promised not to give in to the blues anymore. The companion calmly explained that the large sum was merely a fair payment for the contract. The extremely curious fox suddenly inquired about the reasons for wearing a strange bucket on his head. Marin dryly cited personal reasons, cutting off attempts to look under the visor. Imitar suggested the presence of terrible scars, medals of honor for a brave adventurer. The archer gently advised the sullen hero to open up more to his friends and not hide things. The knight only stood silently, not revealing his true feelings behind the mask. A sudden bright flash blinded Marin as the monster attacked his helmet. The knight delivered a crushing blow, slamming the vile lizard into the solid rock. Imitar grinned maliciously as the elf froze at the sight of the bloody massacre. A huge crystal monster crawled out of the shadows, snapping its mouth menacingly at the squad. A precise blow pierced the creature's eye, causing it to howl in pain. The beast woman furiously attacked the monster, wanting to finish off this dangerous enemy. Imitar turned to the knight in fear, anxiously inquiring about his state of health. The companion froze in a daze, ordering him to raise the visor to check on his friend. The knight grabbed his helmet as a crystal shard pierced his eye. Marin retained his sight despite the presence of this alarmingly profuse bleeding. Imitar insistently demanded that the helmet be removed immediately for examination and treatment of the wound. She threatened to return to the temple if the bloody eye was seriously damaged. Random travelers screamed in horror when they saw a frightening silhouette in the darkness. The panic-stricken warrior rushed away, desperately crying out for salvation. Marin in the cave suddenly recoiled and rudely forbade anyone to touch him. The elf asked in shock if her partner was really so afraid to show his face. The knight convulsively clutched his helmet with his hands and cut off the objections with a short refusal. The warrior closed his mask in despair, begging his allies to stop the pressure. The archer patiently persuaded her partner to allow her to examine the wound for his safety. Marin stubbornly insisted on his well-being, confirming the excellent visibility through the slit. The elf reminded them of her high level, promising to easily survive the attack. Marin coldly interrupted the argument, ordering his companions to quickly finish clearing the dungeon. The girls looked at each other in confusion, but decided to silently submit to the will of the unyielding leader. The archer apologized for trying to use force, promising not to overexert her partner. The knight responded by admitting his guilt and sincerely asking for forgiveness. Soon the heroes successfully completed the dangerous order to destroy the Dort and returned. At the tavern, Imitar was asked anxiously about the battle, but she hid the truth. The beast woman asked with obvious concern whether the temple was really not needed. The elf suggested that the group take a rest, deciding to keep an eye on the condition of her wounded friend. Suddenly, a fighter burst into the room, loudly announcing an emergency. The agitated messenger burst into the tavern, interrupting the hero's rest with his sudden appearance. The girl loudly announced the opening of a new forest dungeon on the outskirts of the capital. Hearing the name Dryad's Garden, Marin thought deeply and repeated the name of the creatures. The archer suggested hurrying to the inn, leaving the solution of the problems to the other groups of the guild. The warrior decisively declared his participation in the cleansing, causing indignation among his companions. Marin touched his helmet, acknowledging the presence of an important thought that was bothering him. The midday sun shone brightly over the dense green forest and distant mountains. Numerous combat units gathered in the clearing to receive instructions on the capture. The adventurers whispered about the defeat of the Discoverer and the strange appearance of the two dryads. Marin doubtfully imagined the monsters in the form of vegetable salad or pickles. The elf expressed serious concerns for her reputation if Marin started eating. Marin offered to cook a vegetable dish, but Dahlia refused the task. Other adventurers anxiously confirmed the rumors about the two bosses. The unknown knight confidently extended his hand, urging them to cast aside their fear of battle. Anchorman de Reseric proudly declared himself the second hero, guaranteeing success. Dahlia asked her partner in amazement if he hadn't heard of heroes. The title of hero was given temporarily, but out of respect the title was kept forever. The appearance of the legendary warriors caused some creatures to literally tremble with terror. The existence of defenders of humanity was considered a necessary counterbalance in a world full of monsters. The awakening of demonic forces foreshadowed the imminent resurrection of the true king of monsters and demons. The elf spoke about the special attitude of the guilds towards the heroes who are obliged to defeat the king. The archer mockingly assessed the excess of titles of the narcissistic knight in a simple dungeon. The girl sadly recalled the death of the second of the 5 found heroes. The 4th hero fell in battle, leaving the world under the protection of 3. Marin remained in heavy silence as a bead of sweat slowly trickled down under his helmet. A swarm of giant wasps suddenly attacked the squad, forcing them to urgently hold the defense. The elf concentrated on pulling the bowstring, preparing to release a powerful magic arrow. A well-aimed shot instantly caught up with the flying monster, literally tearing it apart in the air. Imotar crushed the insect's head with a furious blow, splashing everything with thick green slime. The knight cut down the enemy with a decisive swing of his blade, effectively ending the dynamic forest battle. Experienced adventurers were surprised to note the impressive combat coordination of the new group. Imotar's animal ear twitched, detecting a suspicious movement in the undergrowth. The warrior smugly boasted of her growing fame while Dahlia urged her to focus. On the strategic map, the squad clearly defined its task of containing the monsters. A huge dryad of level 58 towered over the warriors, filling the forest with her scream. The leader of the other squad shouted in panic about the imminent disgrace of their rank. The commander ordered that the second dryad be held until the main battle with the hero was over. The second hero rushed into the attack, his gilded knightly armor flashing. Anchorman coldly considered the possibility of immediately finishing off the dangerous enemy. The knight unleashed a hail of blows on the monster, blinding everyone with flashes of power. The adventurers enthusiastically praised the hero for quickly defeating the boss alone. The knight smiled smugly, enjoying the slight triumph over the defeated tree monster. The surviving dryad howled hysterically, bitterly mourning the death of her faithful forest companion. The mercenaries mockingly wondered if the monster had awakened familial feelings. The ground beneath the warrior's feet suddenly cracked from the surging furious energy. The enraged monster let out a deafening scream, unleashing its true terrifying power. A powerful blast wave suddenly threw the fighters back, plunging the clearing into chaos. Marin realized with horror that his partner's death had triggered an unprecedented cursed reaction. The warriors realized the fatal necessity of killing both forest bosses strictly at the same time. The knight, in a panic, ordered all allies to immediately retreat from the area. The hero froze, noticing the sudden jump in the enraged dryad's level to 70. The knight ordered everyone to retreat, promising to single-handedly gain precious time. The blonde looked at those trapped with disdain, cursing his weak allies. Previously, the warrior secretly bought secret information about assassination tactics from thieves. The smug adventurer confessed to deliberately deceiving the group for personal glory. The hero stepped forward decisively, intending to finish off the monster with a powerful blow. The knight was gleefully anticipating his triumph, intending to confirm his false heroic status. The system suddenly cast a supreme curse on him, completely blocking his skills. The seeker panicked when the vines suddenly gripped his hand. The frightened warrior fell down, realizing his imminent death from the forest monster. The dryad's powerful attack fell upon the hero, raising huge clouds of dust. The knight desperately tried to cut through the strong vine that had trapped his leg. Another blow from the monster knocked the warrior off his feet, causing him to choke in pain. The hero cried out in sudden realization of the complete failure of his carefully planned operation. The mercenaries, in panic, shouted about the hero's defeat and ordered an immediate retreat. Marin, through his helmet, coldly predicted huge losses if the current pace continued. The warrior resolutely rushed forward to intercept the monster, while his allies fled. The knight drew his blade, contemplating the need to restrain his true power. Maren calmly swung his sword, choosing the optimal force to strike the dryad. A blinding flash of energy marked the beginning of the decisive confrontation with the forest monster. Maren made a powerful dash and dealt a crushing magical blow to the dryad. With one precise swing of his sword, the knight cut the huge forest boss into pieces. The shocked adventurer realized with a dazed expression that a level 70 monster had fallen from a single blow. Maren exhaled heavily, watching the petals slowly fall amidst the silence of the forest. The warrior was mentally annoyed by the extra noise his overly powerful performance had caused. The sudden celestial radiance made the knight look up in obvious bewilderment. As his comrades ran, the system solemnly awarded the hero the rare title of Conqueror of the Garden. Imotar praised her partner enthusiastically, while Dahlia discussed the aftermath of his devastating attack. Maren quickly apologized to the elf, noticing her great confusion after the battle. The rescued soldiers sincerely thanked the mysterious warrior for saving them from certain death. The fighters enthusiastically thanked Maren for his incredible victory over the strongest forest boss. The adventurers whispered about the frightening rumors of a knight devouring defeated monsters. The elf and the priestess watched the warrior's strange behavior with obvious suspicion. Imotar furiously demanded that the rude mercenary immediately watch his language. The beast woman disgustedly ordered Dahlia to bring salt to cleanse herself of human filth. Friends rushed to the aid of the fallen hero, offering him to rise from the ground. Anchorman cursed Maren in rage, not understanding the secret of the power of a pitiful rank. The false hero spitefully promised the knight quick and cruel retribution for his shame. The massive wooden building of the town tavern stood peacefully in the bright afternoon sun. A cracked chestnut shell lay on the ground, a silent witness to the events. Maren studied the mountain of prickly husks of collected wild chestnuts with intent. The knight deftly extracted the core of the fruit with a sharp knife. The wicker basket was filled to the brim with large, glossy fruits of an excellent variety. The squad encountered a treant monster, which became an unexpected source of forest delicacies. The swordsman methodically peeled each chestnut from its shell and skin. The peeled fruits were actively cooked in boiling water until half-cooked. Maren prepared the base of the syrup by pouring a portion of sugar into a saucepan. The cook intensively boiled the sweet mixture over the fire until it thickened. The knight carefully placed the cooked preparations into the boiling, thick syrup. The warrior carefully roasted the chestnuts until they had a delicious golden glaze. The knight tightly covered the pan with a lid until it was completely cooked. The chestnuts cooled slowly in the pan late at night. Maren finally finished preparing the sweet monster dish. The warrior looked contentedly at the shiny icing on his fork. The hero resolutely sent the first piece of dessert into his mouth. The incredible taste of the fruit instantly captured the imagination of the experienced warrior. Several layers of syrup impart a deep, rich flavor to the fruits. The knight compared his chestnuts to a fine chocolate truffle. The master decided to immediately share the delicious find with his companions. The elf greeted his partner with a knightly treat with utter amazement. The knight assured his companion that the dessert was completely suitable even for vegetarians. Imotar refused the sweets, citing her sleeping younger relatives. Maren persistently handed the glowing fruit to his eternally dissatisfied partner. Dahlia reluctantly agreed to eat a piece out of pure pity for the knight. The elf carefully tasted the soft fruit, immediately feeling its tenderness. The archer's gaze was instantly transformed by a powerful surge of taste sensations. The girl was genuinely amazed at the sweetness of the fruits obtained from the dangerous monster. Blushing with pleasure, the elf, as usual, burst out with rude insults. The master proudly named the finished exquisite dish after himself. The companion commented ironically on the warrior's vanity, continuing to eat her dessert. Dahlia remembered her mentor's harsh lessons in appetite control. The elf told about the teacher's service as captain of the forest guard. Maren suddenly grabbed his partner's hand, interrupting her story. The knight anxiously asked the mysterious pink-haired mentor about her hair color. The swordsman asked about water magic and mastery of the spear. The hero decisively suggested heading to Dahlia's native forest in the morning. The great forest of Asura stretches beneath the skies of the central continent. The experienced warrior stood frozen among the trees, deep in thought. Maren remembered his old mission with an old mage friend. The silhouette of a rare elf with a spear surfaced in the knight's memory. Dahlia stood frozen in the forest shadows, lost in her thoughts. The knight walked slowly along the path towards his past. The hero felt someone's intense and cold gaze on him. Charlotte spun around, clutching a sharp war spear in her hand. Maren looked in amazement at the majestic and stern figure of his mentor. The elf commanded the stranger to immediately identify himself. The warrior decisively announced his real name to the elf he met. Charlotte was the first to greet the knight after many years of separation in the forest. The warrior's face lit up with a soft and extremely warm smile of recognition. Charlotte laughed merrily, genuinely happy at the unexpected appearance of her old friend. The mentor warmly inquired about the knight's affairs after such a long separation. Old friends walked slowly along the path, reminiscing about years gone by. The elf suddenly put a sharp spear to her companion's throat. The warrior angrily demanded a confession, suspecting her interlocutor of being a cunning impostor. The woman stated that the real Charlotte could not have lived this long. Rose demanded to know her old nickname to confirm her identity. Marin stood silently under the gun, realizing the seriousness of the suspicion that had arisen. The image of a young warrior in old armor surfaced in the elf's memory. The knight recalled his long-standing refusals to join other people's groups. The hero firmly rejected any offers, preferring to fight alone. The young magician in his memories desperately asked the knight to wait a little. The guy persistently lured the warrior into the group with the promise of a meeting with the elves. The companion enthusiastically mentioned his best friend from the forest people. The companion solemnly introduced the knight as the most skilled master of defense. The elf listened to the laudatory story about the mercenary with obvious suspicion. The palms of the old comrades firmly joined as a sign of true friendship. Rose criticized her friend's pretentious name, considering it too complicated. The woman admitted that she shortened her friend's name for personal convenience. The knight froze with his hands raised, amazed by the accuracy of his mentor's memories. Marin gently reminded his friend of the circumstances of their very first meeting. Rose indignantly recalled the mountain of letters from the annoying mercenaries. Marin obediently fell silent, listening to the caustic remarks of his old friend. The elf looked closely at the knight, looking for signs of deception. The mentor matched the warrior's calm voice with his aura. The woman was finally convinced of the identity of her old comrade. The warrior ordered the knight to follow her into the house. The warrior's dark helmet was dimly reflected in the cup of tea. The owner of the hut apologized to the guest for the modest reception. A lonely house stood peacefully among the dense forest thickets. Rose asked the knight directly about the reasons for hiding his face. The knight, dejected, dully confirmed the existence of secret reasons for his behavior. Rose suddenly ordered her old friend to immediately extend his palm to her. The elf was amazed, because time seemed to have frozen on the man's face. The warrior, with bated breath, inquired about the life of their mutual friend. Marin sadly acknowledged the death of his entire fighting unit. The woman reflected sadly on the all-too-brief human lifespan. The owner of the house stated directly that she had buried all her comrades long ago. Rose remembered her rare letters that came from the outside world. The warrior sat in silence, tormented by the lack of news for many years. The famous group Romantia seemed to have vanished into thin air, leaving behind mysteries. Rose told of the high-profile disappearance of a renowned mercenary squad. Silhouettes of former comrades appeared in the memory of the grieving elf. The woman admitted that she had long since stopped hoping for a miracle. The owner of the hut was amazed at the eternal youth of her old acquaintance. The knight listened in silence to the bitter confessions of his mentor. Rose suddenly remembered their last raid together. The Spider Queen then dropped a rare skill book. The purple glow of the arachnophobia artifact filled the elf's memories. Rose confirmed that she personally tested that item with the skill. Marin clenched his fist, blaming the damn thing for everything. Marin blamed the cursed artifact for the deaths of his comrades. Hordes of goblins viciously attacked a group of mercenaries in the past. Monsters with red eyes rushed towards the heroes. The magician and the archer discussed the appearance of the strange creatures with alarm. The warrior blocked the enemy's path, trying to buy time. The horde of monsters fell en masse on the shields of the vanguard. The girl pulled the bowstring, preparing a powerful magical shot. A blinding glowing rain fell upon the heads of the advancing goblins. The blonde looked with fear at her friend surrounded by enemies. The young wizard completed the preparation of his decisive spell. A bright magical flame engulfed the enemies, who screamed in horror in their death throes. A group of adventurers studied the charred remains of extremely strange and previously unseen goblins in complete bewilderment. Archer Charlotte was enraged by the client's deception and angrily demanded a significant increase in the final monetary reward. The squad realized the danger of the situation and decided to retreat immediately, taking the monster's corpse to report to the guild. The young man suddenly shuddered at the icy female whisper accusing his entire squad of unforgivable and harsh rudeness. A mysterious figure in a black cloak stood mournfully in the forest among the mountains of corpses of its destroyed creations. A heavy, armored hand blocked the girl's path, imperiously demanding that she immediately identify herself in the restricted area. The detachment quickly took up defensive positions on a forest path, preparing to repel a sudden and dangerous attack. The blonde in armor, with concern in her eyes, ordered her loyal allies to immediately prepare for the worst. The warrior coldly explained that their group were licensed adventurers and had come for a complete cleanup. The mysterious figure smiled ominously, remembering his experimental creatures. Charlotte's partners realized in horror that it was impossible to defeat the enemy. The cloaked being mentioned the importance of his interrupted sacred ritual. The dragonid contemptuously called the heroes she met pathetic little people. Behind the shield, Marin sensed a catch in the enemy's true race. The interface confirmed the shocking truth about the target's affiliation with dragons. The heavy armor shook from the enemy's powerful magical impact. A devastating explosion instantly scattered the squad along the forest path. Charlotte, seriously wounded, sank unconscious at the roots of a tree. The monster reached out to the fallen, preparing them to be sacrificed in the ritual. The warrior commanded the battle, ordering Demyon to immediately rescue Charlotte. The dragonid grinned ominously, deciding to reveal his name to the pathetic bugs. The monster proclaimed itself to be the true and majestic golden dragon of wisdom. Demyon, in horror, called on his allies to keep a close eye on the enemy. The young man panicked and realized the need for an immediate magical escape from here. The bloody outbreak marked the beginning of a new and extremely merciless massacre. The golden dragon mercilessly pierced Carl's chest before the eyes of the squad. Charlotte fired in desperation, calling the enemy a disgusting bloody monster. The assassin instantly dealt with the archer, drenching the ground with crimson blood. The warrior stood frozen, not noticing the superhuman movements of this ancient dragon. The monster towered triumphantly over the bodies of the slain human warriors. The warrior realized in horror the imminent death of her entire squad. The seriously wounded young man lay in a pool of his own scarlet blood. The archer lay lifelessly on the ground, hoping for a miraculous healing. The magician desperately tried to buy time by using his protective spells. The heroine angrily asked the dragon about the purpose of his cruel visit. The dragonid's scarlet eye flashed madly, yearning for the demon king's resurrection. The monster arrogantly boasted of having mastered the highest wisdom of this entire universe. The enemy fanatically proclaimed the need for the complete cleansing of the world from humanity. Darkness and scarlet flames marked the appearance of the true ancient entity. The demon king's powerful essence appeared in a frightening crimson halo. The dragon was preparing a sacred ritual for the long-awaited resurrection of his master. The creature, in ecstasy, proclaimed itself the future wife of the resurrected ruler. The monster's scarlet eye blazed with fanatical love for the demon king. The mad dragon Salvatore triumphantly shouted his true name into the forest. Demyon secretly rejoiced at the time he had gained, listening to the delirium of his crazy enemy. The young man completed the preparation of a mass healing artifact for immediate escape. The heavy tread of the monster announced the end of preparations for the great day. A bloody thorn suddenly pierced the young man's chest, interrupting his desperate plan. Salvatore scornfully ridiculed the pathetic tricks of the magician who was dying before her eyes. The warrior attacked the dragon furiously, shouting her battle cry. A powerful blow threw the girl back, crushing her defense. Salvatore spread her wings, mocking the hero's death throes. The knight realized the hopelessness of a frontal attack against this monster. The mysterious grimoire promised to buy precious time for escape. The clenched fist expressed an unwavering determination to continue the losing battle. The magic helmet glowed scarlet as the fear skill was activated. System notifications confirmed the debuff was activated and instantly dispelled. The severed dark limb lay lifelessly frozen in a pool of blood. A mysterious white-haired stranger suddenly appeared under the moonlight. The white skull rolled slowly across the blood-soaked night ground. The white-haired youth was stunned to realize the full horror of the massacre that had taken place. A huge Spider-Man stood frozen among the torn bodies on a forest path. The hero's gaze fell on the scattered bones and remains of armor. The system interface warned of a critical change in the current state of mind. The character was horrified by the thought of his involvement in mass death. The magical decoration on the severed limb suddenly emitted a bright glow. The holy artifact has started automatically cleansing the soul of dark debuffs. The warrior looked at his hands, covered in blood and scales, in bewilderment. The hero realized that the bracelet saved him from the madness of assimilation. The swordsman, having regained consciousness, felt the joy of his sanity returning. The system window confirmed the death of the level 88 Holy Knight. The hero was horrified to realize that the great hope of all humanity had been killed. The warrior, in a panic, tried to remember the fate of his faithful comrades. A single eye froze in stupor from the shocking truth. On the bloody ground lay only a broken magic staff. A huge spider-like body towered among the torn remains. A century later, the knight told the elf his tragic story. The man trembled as he confessed to countless murders. The companion sadly acknowledged the severity of the trials that befell the warrior. The elf gently excused the knight for the unsuccessful outcome of the battle with the dragon, acknowledging his noble sacrifice. His companion sincerely apologized for asking unnecessary questions, finally realizing the true reason for his miraculous survival. Marin Glass reminded the intrigued elf of her long-standing question about the reasons for constantly wearing a closed helmet. The knight remembered with bitterness how, for centuries, random people he met had called his face the face of a terrible monster. The hero sadly admitted that he had seriously considered performing a purification ritual in a distant capital temple. The warrior bowed his head dejectedly, admitting his long-standing fear of looking other people straight in the eye. The elf crossed her arms and asked if the warrior had confided this dark secret to her younger sister. Marin sincerely feared that the revelation of his true form would instantly destroy their long, strong friendship. The knight visibly flinched at the suggestion that he first open up only to his most loyal and trusted comrades. The companion fervently convinced him that sincere acceptance by his friends would help the hero finally fully accept himself. Marin Glass honestly admitted that he does not yet trust his comrades. The elf covered the knight's hand with her own as a sign of sincere support. The companion urged the warrior to trust his friends, just as he had trusted her. The knight sank into a heavy silence, pondering his companion's words. The hero promised to try to open up, which sincerely pleased his companion. The elf suddenly asked about the reasons for choosing his current name. Marin showed a jar of fruits that had exactly the same name. The warrior remembered how a random stranger he met was the first to ask his name. It was then that the hero first introduced himself to those around him under the name Marin Glass. The hero explained his name change by saying he was wanted, which made the elf laugh. Marin recalled meeting Imitar and Dahlia, who created the team. It was noticeable that over the centuries, she began to smile more often. The friends shook hands firmly, agreeing to meet again soon. The warrior walked away while his companion waved goodbye. The girl believed that his comrades had long since trusted the knight implicitly. The hero's steps became firmer on the way to his faithful friends. Marin seriously considered the possibility of showing Dahlia and Imitar's face. Looking at the sunset, the warrior hoped for a change in his soul. An enraged Imitar screamed and slammed her fists on the tavern table. Marin returned to find the predatory beast woman in a fit of unbridled rage. Imitar brought a plate of fresh roasted chestnuts to the table. Imitar demanded that the knight pay attention to her furious story. The beast woman remembered how the impudent adventurer intercepted her quests. The warrior presented the fair-haired insolent man with evidence of his vile violations. The golden hero laughed, calling his vile act a minor mistake. The angry predator could barely contain her desire to kill the impudent man. The elf companion condemned the capital's hero's infantile and provocative behavior. Imitar was outraged by this guy's complete lack of respect for the knight. The hero's hand reached for the food while discussing the adventurer. Marin listened silently to the accusations against the hero who was terrorizing people. Marin watched the games of the little beastman in surprise. The little beastman bit into the roasted chestnut greedily. The children enthusiastically gobbled up the sweets, delighted at the rare treat. Imitar unsuccessfully demanded that the food, which she considered dirty, be spit out. The elf companion doomedly called all the capital's heroes real psychos. The companion suddenly remembered the story of the fourth hero killed by the monster. The knight clenched his fists tensely, checking the serial number of the deceased hero. Marin suspected that the petty, insolent man was capable of secret murder. The elf was skeptical about the courage of that cowardly and vile guy. The capital's hero laughed smugly at the absurd revenge of his comrades. The first hero died ingloriously in the depths of a dark dungeon. The elf archer excitedly acknowledged the unofficial nature of her information. Marin's companion told the knight terrible rumors about the heroes. The bandaged heroine revealed the terrible truth about the murder of her comrade. The warrior's bloody body was left lying on the cold floor. The third hero's ominous silhouette appeared in the glow of the high windows. Marin Glass was shocked by the theory of a bloody massacre between best friends. A powerful bolt of lightning suddenly struck the spire of the high castle. Frightened townspeople watched the artificial flash in the sky. The mad magician mercilessly incinerated all those who were dissatisfied with powerful lightning bolts. Those around him avoided in fear the only hero who inspired true terror. An elven archer exposed the authorities' false version of the death of a nobleman's protector. Imitar furiously promised to tear out the hair of the first hero when they met. Marin Glass pondered deeply over the strange motives of his enemies. The knight remembered the smug enemy who had laid claim to his unique titles. The elf explained the importance of the title of pioneer in gaining hero status. An angry Imitar accused the arrogant warrior of wanting to take credit for his achievements. Friends discussed the ridiculous accusation of stealing the title for completing the garden. Marin was surprised by the candidate's painful pride at the emergence of new rivals. The little beastman looked with curiosity at the sweet treat on the table. An angry Imitar decisively put a stop to the whims of the little beastman in the tavern. Marin Glass was silent for a long time, tormented by dark inner experiences. The woman from the memories urged the knight to learn to trust people. Imitar threatened the children, reflecting on the impossibility of keeping secrets forever. The elf hopefully predicted the imminent and inevitable triumph of truth. The swordsman touched his visor, fearing his friend's reaction to his face. The night lights of the capital silently watched the hero's mental anguish. The group entered the vaulted hall, engulfed in ghostly green flames. A dangerous mutated slug suddenly made a swift leap towards Imitar. The elven archer raised her bow, ordering the warrior to immediately clear her line of sight. Marin enveloped his sword in a furious magical flame. The knight launched a swift blow at the dangerous enemy. The archer suspected the imminent resurrection of the formidable demon king. The warrior seriously feared another hopeless encounter with the dragon. Marin darkly doubted the fighting strength of his partners. The hero furiously ordered his ally to immediately dodge the attack. The devastating explosion caused a powerful shockwave in the hall. The elf loudly called on Imitar to immediately join the fight. The beast woman prepared to incinerate the mutant with hot magical fire. The destructive flames of Imitar completely destroyed the mutated slug. Imitar shook off the remaining slime with disgust, checking the condition of her comrades in arms. The beast woman furiously scolded Marin for his strange thoughtfulness in the middle of a dangerous dungeon. The helmeted knight froze in shock after the hot-tempered warrior's harsh accusation. The elf Dahlia looked at the deep bloody wound on her arm with bewilderment. Marin clenched his fist in rage, cursing his own weakness and carelessness. The priestess of Imitar quickly enveloped the elf's wounded hand in a soft healing light. The heavy warrior dryly explained the necessity of his presence on the front lines. Marin hid his embarrassment behind his visor, calling his rescue a simple accident. The archer objected, recognizing the human knight as her full-fledged and loyal combat comrade. Imitar taunted her friend, causing Dahlia to flush with embarrassment and anger. Marin distanced himself from the group, overcome with dark thoughts after the meeting. The knight apologized for the wound, and Imitar asked about his teacher. Imitar suddenly called out to Marin, sensing something was wrong with his behavior. The elf keenly caught the frightening noise of the monsters approaching the squad. The dark claw suddenly inflicted a deep and fatal wound on the knight. A huge black shadow ominously appeared before the warriors, who were scared to death. The surrounded soldier desperately called for help from belated reinforcements. The terrifying monster bared its teeth, preparing to completely devour its victims. The wounded guard prayed for salvation, lying on the cold ground. The shadow attacked the fallen knight furiously, leaving no chance for survival. The shadow bared its huge mouth in fury, emitting purple magical flame. The astonished guard watched in amazement as reinforcements suddenly and swiftly appeared. The elf archer beckoned defiantly to the monster, preparing to release a deadly arrow. Imitar made a powerful leap towards the enemy, using animal grace. The beast woman furiously launched a magical blow straight at the head of the eerie shadow. The warrior was amazed by the incredible destructive power of her own final move. The huge monster tried to completely swallow the brave heroine with its jaws. Marin Glass decisively cut through the monster's flesh with an enchanted fireblade. The rescued knight watched the professional actions of the mercenaries with undisguised admiration. The victim sincerely thanked the heroes for their timely and heroic rescue. The rescued dwarf joyfully thanked the mercenaries for his sudden deliverance. Marin asked why the companions decided to save people of their own free will. A stern guard blocked the carriage's path, warning of mortal danger. Imitar and Dahlia bowed in horror before the important royal person. Knight Marin sincerely did not understand the reasons for such a violent reaction. The companions furiously scolded their partner for not knowing the identity of the great Sama. The mysterious stranger smiled condescendingly, watching the argument between ordinary mercenaries. Ophiura majestically introduced herself as the king's daughter and the legendary goldsmith. The elf was shocked to realize the high status of the little sorceress they had saved. The old dwarf confirmed that the young lady belonged to the royal family. The elf Dahlia denied any desire to help the people she hated. The partners rushed quickly through the forest thicket towards their goal. Marin realized the futility of hoping for the sudden kindness of his comrade. Dahlia calmly informed the knight about Imitar's departure to the guild. The beast woman suffered from endless questioning from the meticulous employees of the local guild. The elf screamed in shock at the knight because of his astonishing ignorance. An enraged Dahlia shook Marin furiously for his insolent words. The knight learned of the marital status of a high-ranking married dwarven lady. The elderly dwarf sincerely thanked the brave mercenaries for their miraculous rescue. Marin listened silently to the dwarf's confession about the importance of their help. The guild member politely apologized to the heroes for the long wait. Lady Ophiura has officially given her rescuers permission to finally go home. The little sorceress insistently asked the mercenaries to immediately state their names. Marin Glass introduced himself to Ophiura, promising to remember this meeting forever. The important lady urged her companions to follow her quickly to the carriage. Ophiura condescendingly called Dahlia, and the knight simply very kind children. The heroes learned that Imitar had been sent ahead specifically for additional testing. The friends decided to humbly wait for their leader's return in the main hall. Dahlia began to become seriously worried about the beast woman's prolonged delay. The hungry knight's stomach suddenly made a very loud and treacherous sound. Marin took out the food, reminding Dahlia of their missed dinner. A plate with a bright and fresh salad appeared on the table. The elf was surprised by her partner's rare desire to eat ordinary vegetables. Dahlia refused to eat, afraid of finding pieces of monsters there. A hungry stomach forced the proud archer to immediately change her decision. The girl resolutely asked Marin to share a portion of vegetables with her. Dahlia carefully picked up the delicious and juicy lettuce leaf with her fork. The archer tried the dish, hoping for the complete purity of its composition. The heroine opened her eyes wide, shocked by the amazing taste of the food. The elf acknowledged this salad as the best since leaving the forest. The elf archer enjoyed the food and asked Marin about the strange ingredients. Upon hearing the truth about the slime, the archer dropped her fork in horror. The realization that the monster had been eaten caused the heroine to tremble violently. Marin calmly explained his culinary experiments with chestnut juice. The knight assured her that the salad was safe, but the elf suspected something was wrong. The warrior admitted that he added crushed eye demon to the food. The elf screamed in horror while Marin discussed the benefits of spices. The enraged archer shook the knight, cursing him for the monster in the plate. Marin reminded his partner of the praise for the dish, causing a burst of anger. The insulted elf left, refusing to listen to the knight's ridiculous excuses. An exhausted Imitar entered the room, complaining about the late hour. The beast woman complained about bureaucracy while her friends listened attentively. The warrior proudly announced that she had achieved the status of a B-rank adventurer. Hellion smoked leisurely, giving orders to his smiling assistant. The heroes stood silently in front of the deputy guild leader's massive desk. Hellion asked if they were the saviors of the dwarven princess. The man officially recognized Imitar, causing the girl to flinch in surprise. An official certificate of achievement of rank B landed on the table. Imitar looked at the document with delight, beaming with genuine happiness. The happy heroine jubilantly raised the certificate, celebrating her important victory. Imotar playfully promised Dahlia that she would soon surpass her in rank. Hellion interrupted the fun by reminding them of the strict criteria for evaluating the group. The team's overall rank depended on its weakest link, leaving friends disappointed. Imitar realized the need for an urgent increase in ranks for the entire team. Marin approached the deputy head with a new question in earnest. The knight mentioned a terrible dragon that attacked the city decades ago. The warrior persistently demanded information about the mysterious golden dragon. The official shook off the ashes, citing the time since those tragic events. The interlocutor admitted that he had only heard fragments of frightening legends. Horrific visions of flames recalled the scale of the past disaster. Imitar and the archer stood tensely, awaiting the official's important decision. Hellion pointed to Daisy's assistant as a wise keeper of knowledge. The team obediently followed the elf to study the secret archives. Left alone, the deputy head of the guild thoughtfully lit a cigar. The man quietly said Marin's name, suddenly plunged into dark thoughts. Hellion pondered the sudden appearance of such a powerful warrior in the city. The official carefully studied the secret report with a portrait of a chained knight. Marin questioned Daisy about the circumstances of the legendary monster's attack on the city. The warrior persistently clarified the coordinates of the dragon's lair after that large-scale battle. Daisy concentrated on trying to recall the events of those distant years. Legend has it that heroes of the past destroyed a winged monster. Marin asked in shock if his target had really been defeated.